Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening for our October Council meeting. I'd like to welcome all councillors, staff, members of the public and other people listening online. So this evening, members of the public have registered to speak, some by audio-visual link on an agenda item. So if there's anybody online, I ask that you keep your microphone muted and video off until invited to speak. Speakers will not be able to present material as part of their speaking time or share their screen. Everyone at this meeting is reminded to conduct themselves in a polite, professional manner, keep communication factual, use appropriate language and tone, do not use any defamatory or derogatory remarks. Defamation laws apply to addresses in public forum. I also ask councillors to observe the requirements under the Code of Meeting Practice and Etiquette, including debate on an item will commence only once we have a mover and a seconder. The remover has a right of reply before the motion is put to a vote. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak. On commencement of your speaking on a motion or amendment, please indicate clearly whether you are speaking for or against the motion or amendment. You can speak for up to a maximum of 5 minutes. I remind all present that video recording is an official record of council and may be made available to persons upon request in accordance with the Government Information Public Access Act 2009. No other recordings are permitted. I shall now acknowledge country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians, the Gadigal and Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. The people of the Eora Nation, their spirits and ancestors will always remain with our waterways and the land, our Mother Earth. I would now like to invite Reverend David Jung from St Paul's Anglican Church, Kogarah, to open the meeting in prayer, please. Please be upstanding.
Friends, let's pray. Creator God, you made from one man all the nations and determined where each should live. Bring before you the Indigenous people of Australia, especially the Gadigal and Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional owners of the land. We acknowledge the history that has damaged the relationship between them and those of us who have arrived after them to this land. Thank you for the steps that have been taken on the journey towards reconciliation. Deepen this process among us. Guide national and community leaders to speak the truth in love, to seek justice with mercy, and to care for those who are disadvantaged. Father, give both the First Nation Christian believers and the believers who have come after them the grace to demonstrate that we are a new family, that in the Lord Jesus, you have made us one people, united by the Holy Spirit, out of people from every nation, tribe, language, and tongue. Gracious Lord, grant to our governments and all who serve in public life wisdom and skill, imagination and energy. Protect them from corruption and the temptation to serve themselves. Help us all to commit ourselves to the common good, that our land may be a secure home for all its people. Gracious God, thank you for bringing to our country people from many races and cultures. Take away the mistrust and lack of understanding that so easily divide us. Increase in us true humility and love for strangers. Remove racism from our midst, that we may share this land and its bounty, and all who may hear the gospel of our Saviour Christ and to know his love. We pray this in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace. Amen. Friends, if you know the Lord's Prayer, you can say this with me. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Please be seated.
Thank you, Reverend David. We appreciate you making the time to come and join us tonight and for your prayers. All right, that takes us to attendance and apologies. So Councillor McDougall is running a little bit late and will join us online. So due to this, we'll have to undertake a procedural motion to allow Councillor McDougall to attend the meeting by audiovisual link. Can I have a mover? Move Councillor Naji, seconded Councillor Jansen. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. Thank you. Now takes us to disclosures of interest. So I will go around the room and please let me know if you would like to make any disclosures tonight. Councillor Morrissey. Councillor Muscat. Councillor Jansen. She said no. Councillor Saranowski. Thank you, Councillor Saranowski. Councillor Souness, Councillor Werner, Councillor Owada, Councillor Hannah.
Just for the sake of clarity, I noticed one of the speakers shares my surname. Just like it on the record that that person's not related to me in any manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Councillor Douglas.
I have a declaration for 10.2 and 12.2, which are both that I have a less than significant non-pecuniary interest on the basis of perception, as I am a member of Peaceful Bayside, a group that advocates for safer streets across the Bayside LGA, and I will remain in the chamber for consideration and voting on the matter. And it looks like I also need to declare a less than significant non-pecuniary interest in 11.3 on the basis that I'm a member of the Bay Community Garden that is situated in the park under debate, and that I will remain in the chamber for consideration and voting on the matter. Thank you.
So you referring to CPE 22.032?
I am. Thank you,
Thank
Madam
you,
Mayor.
Councillor Douglas. Councillor Cedrak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will declare on 10.5 less than significant non-pecuniary, as I am of the Coptic Orthodox faith. However, this is not my parish, so I'll be staying in the chamber for this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cedrak. Councillor Muscat.
Sorry, I've got two, it seems. Can we come back to them, please, on the board? The one is for item 11.1C S22025 about the proposal hosting, as I'm the organiser for that event, as being president of Botany RSL Swimming Club. And the second one is CPE 22.033. That's the post-exhibition contributions plan for the proposed costing of Botany Pool. So,
Are you staying in the chamber?
I'll stay, but I won't say anything.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Muscat. Okay. All right, so no further disclosures. That now takes us to the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I ask two councillors who were present at the meeting to move and second the confirmation? Moved Councillor Naji, seconded Councillor Jansen. Are there any amendments? Councillor Werner, could you please stand up?
Yep, I believe there is there was a mistake in the minutes. I've sent an email to the governance team. It was about the St George Historical Society and the Lytham Hall debate, and I believe we decided to go for the original recommendation from council instead of deferring it, and I believe the governance team has already amended that.
Thank you, Councillor Werner. Are there any other changes? All right, well, taking into account that amendment, all those in favour say aye. Against, declare those minutes carried. Councillors, we now have some wonderful presentations, and so probably where that noise was originating from. So we might invite the St George Saints under-20s women's team to come and join us. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, just if you'd like to wait there for a moment and I'll read and then we'll invite you to the front. Wonderful. Thank you for coming tonight. Wonderful. So, on behalf of Bayside and our community, I'd like to acknowledge the fantastic achievement of your girls team, our very own St George Saints under-20 women's team, in being crowned as Football New South Wales League One champions. It's an amazing achievement. And of course to coaches and management who support the team as well. Thank you for coming along and for your work as well. We're very proud of your achievement and in awe of your performance during the year, scoring 84 goals and only conceding 15 in 30 rounds of football is extremely impressive. So well done. And to then go on to beat an undefeated team that was strong favourites to win your grand final shows your strength of character and resilience. And it's always lovely when our Bayside teams beat teams from the other side of town. So a big congratulations from all of us to all of you. And I'd now like to invite you all up to receive for a presentation. So if you'd just like to come around here. So Yasmin, I think, is the captain. Well, why don't you all come up, girls? Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Thanks again for coming. You're welcome to stay and watch your council meeting. All right. This brings me to another presentation. So, our Bayside Waste and Cleansing Services team was recently recognised at the Keep Australia Beautiful Sustainable Cities Award 2022, and a special commendation award went to our very own Joe Ligargio for outstanding work on Bayside's submission to IPART regarding waste levies. He was the first person ever to receive a special commendation at the Keep Australia New South Wales ceremony. Congratulations, Joe. This is very well deserved. And on behalf of council, is he here? Oh. That's right. See?
Madam Mayor, maybe you could ask him about the hedges.
Bayside does have the best hedges.
Yes.
And our one more presentation for the evening. So we have another great achievement by one of our staff members to celebrate tonight. So Rodney Sanjavi, Financial Strategy and Reporting Manager, was recently announced as the recipient of the Local Government Professionals New South Wales Next Gen Leaders Scholarship. We are fortunate to have lots of talented people working for Bayside, and it's great to see you getting this recognition. So congratulations on a fantastic achievement, and we'd also like to give you a certificate to councillors if you'd like to. It's good for Okay, councillors, thank you. That now brings us to our mayoral minutes. So we've got, there's a late edition mayoral minute which will be on your table as well, which I'll talk to in a moment. So the first mayoral minute, 7.1, so this is in relation to the Transport for New South Wales proposed extended Clearway road closures along the Grand Parade corridor. So this mayoral minute is focused on letting the government know that Bayside Council does not support the expansion of the clearways and that the proposed compensatory works fall short of what is needed to address the potential problems there, and that council also lets the Minister and Rockdale MP Steve Camper know that we do not support the proposal. So these proposed changes to Grand Parade are what it's looking at doing is turning it into a motorway for residents travelling to southern Sydney. And these changes will have a negative impact on residents, businesses and visitors to our area. And some councillors will know when we held a mobile office on the weekend that you know, there were concerns raised there. And I'd also like to make mention that we also have a submission that council is putting into Transport for New South Wales, which is in agenda item 10.2 tonight. So I put that mayoral minute and to council. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? I declare it carried. Okay, the second mayoral minute is 7.2, the New South Wales Government not proceeding with new approaches to rezoning after a strong council campaign. So what they were looking at was putting forward a way to streamline the process, but in reality what that did was significantly erode the role for council in the planning process, and particularly, as everyone knows, councillors have not been involved in determining development applications, but what they wanted to do was bypass the process where planning proposals are considered by council, and this would have had, these proposed reforms would have had quite detrimental impacts because, you know, council as the closest level of government to the community understand the areas and understand the issues. And so this is a very good outcome, and it was a vigorous campaign that Bayside Council was involved into objecting to these, what were fundamentally flawed proposal, and I'm pleased to say that they're scrapping the reforms, so an excellent outcome. Okay, 7.3. Oh, all those in favour? I put the mayoral minute. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. 7.3. This one has come about. A number of councillors wanted to acknowledge the all our sporting teams. It's been a challenging couple of years for our sporting organisations across all the codes, and this is just an opportunity for us to say thank you to all the people involved in our local sporting organisations. So there's numerous volunteers, the players, the parents that take their children, and the executive of these organisations or clubs, and this doesn't happen without the dedication of people from our community who give up hours and hours so that our children can participate and play in a range of sports. And we're really lucky here. We have a lot of outdoor space. We have a lot of sports that our youth can participate in. So this is just passing on our thanks to everyone involved in all they've done over the 2022 winter season. So I put the motion. All those in favour? Yes?
I rise to support your mayoral minute in relation to the winter community sports season. On Sunday, I attended the Champions League at Valentine Park. I'd never been there before, and two of our clubs were champions. One won, one lost, and the team that lost was a bit dubious in terms of it was a extra time. It was a penalty kick awarded against the other side. But it was so great to see a lot of our Bayside residents there supporting two of our clubs were champions of champions in the league. Now, one of them was the under 12 team that we acknowledged. You've acknowledged a few meetings back. The under 12s were champions of champions in the New South Wales competition, and the other team that was in the finals, which they dominated most of the game, was Banksia Tigers. You may have heard of that club. They had probably about 500 supporters there, all supporting, and there were teams in our Bayside Council area that were there supporting Banksia Tigers. Some of the teams, they've played against each other, and it was good. I went there to have a look at it, to see our teams, our community organisation, and you're right, all the volunteers. But what impressed me the most was the fact that our clubs in the Bayside area all rallied around the two teams that were in the final champions of champions, which is a big achievement, because it's not only for the kids, but also for us, our community at Bayside Council, because what they did, they drew everybody together. They even had opposition teams that have traditionally fought hard, were there barricading, were supporting, I should say, Banksia Tigers there. And as I said, it was full time, it was 2-2. Unfortunately, in extra time, there was a penalty, which I don't think should have been awarded. And the young girls, the under 12s who played earlier, I was so proud of them that, similar to St George football ladies team, was that they went through the competition undefeated. It's a great achievement for our community, and I certainly support your comments in relation to the. We've gone through a very difficult time with the rain, and a lot of the games were cancelled. And I think I spoke to the St George Soccer Association a few months ago, and they said they had about 600 games were delayed. And if we didn't have the winter all-weather fields, they would have had all the games would have been scrapped on it. But no, they should all be congratulated, Madam Mayor, and I rise to support your Mayoral Minute.
Thank you, Councillor Saranowski. Councillor Cedric?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too support your Mayoral Minute. All sports, part of Bayside. It's an amazing community initiative that is the heart of our community. I'd like to recognise in particular the Bayside Football Soccer Association and their champions, as well as St George Soccer. In particular, Madam Mayor, the teams that were wonderful throughout the 2022 season: Arncliffe, Banksia Tigers, Bexley North, Dolls Point, Cogra, Ramsgate RSL, Rockdale Raiders, Rockdale Suns, and the Scots. And like Councillor Saranowski said, if it wasn't for the Bayside playing fields and majority of the clubs that were able to train throughout the year, regardless of the weather, because of our grounds. If it wasn't for our grounds and the conditions the perfect conditions they're in, so thank you to the team and the staff. There's been a lot of good feedback that the soccer teams have been had a positive contribution due to the fields. So I'd like to congratulate all the teams, in particular the female teams. One of the highest participation rate was 2022, especially after 2 years of COVID. And I would like to thank the players, the teams, the volunteers, and of course, the families. So thank you, Madam Mayor, and I support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Cedric. Any other speakers? And I think you made a good point too. I think we'll also pass on our thanks and gratitude to the staff that are out there each and every day, making sure that all our playing areas and fields look amazing. And so if you could please pass that on behalf of councillors and the community. Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. This brings us to 7.4, 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Councillors may recall that in May I tabled a mayoral minute calling for an action plan to increase awareness and prevention of domestic, family and sexual violence, and then also looking at a way that we could come together as a community to increase awareness, educate, and then also take action. And I'm very pleased that a meeting was held with key groups in our community, such as the New South Wales Police, Bayside Women's Shelter, Bay City Care, Advanced Diversity Services, Sydney Multicultural Service, Southeastern Community Connect, and some other local groups. And together we worked through what would a program look like for the 16 days of activism against violence. So that's being finalised and will come shortly. But one of the outcomes that came out was that we hold a community walk. And so we're very, very excited and that we will be holding this walk on the 26th of November at 10 a.m. and we'll start in the park next to Ramsgate RSL and walk down Ramsgate Shops and then across to Depina Reserve, where there'll be where we'll have speakers and we'll have a community barbecue there. And so I know that the police are partnering with us on this particular walk. We've also written to all the sporting groups and community groups and asked them to wear their team colours or bring flags, or so, you know, trying to get as many people there. So we hope to see as many councillors and staff there, those that can make it, and please share it wide and far, and we hope the community you can all attend as well. So it's an important initiative. You'll also notice our garbage trucks have already got some signage on it. And we'll also be, some flags will be going on our flag poles as well. So, you know, as we've talked about before, domestic violence is an issue, and we all play a role in working towards preventing domestic and family violence. Are there any speakers? Councillor Douglas.
I just want to commend you for your motion, Madam Mayor, and just bring to light, those of us who attended the Local Government New South Wales conference this week, sat through a very interesting seminar about crime and preventing crime. And some of the facts that it revealed was that during COVID, most crimes in our community generally across New South Wales have actually decreased because there's been increased surveillance. Sorry, they've decreased, I should say, because there's been increased surveillance because people are working from home, which is great. Things like theft have decreased. But the things that have increased in quite large decreases, as much as up to 40%, are things like sexual violence and domestic violence. And you can see that that's the flip side. When people are stuck together in a home, you know, the tensions rise. So I just really commend this motion that we all do need to put a spotlight on these issues and show people that it's okay to report these issues and to seek help. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. And we do have a lot of services, a number of services in our community that do support women and children, and also working with perpetrators as well. Any other speakers? I put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. So this is the additional motion, which is 7.5, which was emailed to you, and you have a hard copy. So this is just in relation to the Local Government New South Wales annual conference. So a number of councillors, including myself, attended the conference over the last 3 days. And it's a great learning opportunity, but most importantly, what it does give, it gives us an opportunity to come together and share ideas and debate issues that shape the way Local Government New South Wales is governed. And then what happens is these motions are then endorsed by the annual conference, which means they become a resolution, and resolutions eventually form Local Government New South Wales policy and guide the advocacy. So some of the topics that Bayside Council you put forward, so it came through council a couple of months ago, and were around As you can see, their proposed cycle of revaluations of council assets, impact of federal government stimulus funding, climate change and resilience, dealing with electoral fraud, noise camera legislations, and better waste and recycling funding. So all our motions were carried uncontested, so which means that they were supported by all the voting delegates that were present there. So so thank you for everyone that contributed to those motions, and just wanted to put that on the record. Councillor Hannah.
Madam Mayor, I think hopefully this one's been an oversight, but there was a very important motion that I'm pretty sure was passed, and it's not in this list of 6.
Which one's that?
The legislative change to restrictions on developer contributions.
Was that ours?
Yeah, it was mine, which is why I'm a bit upset, because I'm pretty
My-
sure that went through. That's
My
a
apologies.
very important structural change
Very
to
much so.
finances.
My
So
apologies.
that's okay.
My apologies, Councillor
I'm pretty
Hannah.
sure that did
if
go through.
It
Yes,
did.
Yes.
Could we, when this mayoral minute is then published, can we have that one added to it, please?
And the trucks as well, but I'm pretty sure the truck fine, we might
Oh.
have piggybacked in on Blacktown
So
Council. Yes.
I think that's
Yeah.
what's, that there's some that were up for debate, and then there were others that were, automatically just in a different section. So we will add those. Thank you, and my apologies.
Madam Mayor, do you mind if I just say a thank you to the staff member, Karen Barris, who organised for the councillors to attend, because it was quite a logistical affair to get us all up there and into the right sessions and everything. I just want to acknowledge the time she put into that.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Any other? All right. I put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? I declare it carried. Thank you, councillors. That now brings us to items by exception. So prior to the public forum, I will now proceed to deal with the remainder of the business on the paper by exception. Councillors, the public forum items, which I'll call out in a minute, and the items where councillors have a pecuniary and or significant interest will be dealt with individually. So at the moment, I am pulling out 10.1, 10.2, 10.5, 11.1 number 025, 11.3 number 032 and number 033. And as always, I leave the notices of motion there. I will go around the room to see if there are any other items that councillors would like to pull out. Councillor Morrissey, no. Councillor Muscat, Councillor Fidel, Councillor Jansen, Councillor Naji, Councillor Saranowski, Councillor Sunis, Councillor Werner.
Could we please have 11.1 CS 22024, the Scarborough Park Courts update, please?
Yes. Councillor Wider, Councillor Barlow, Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 10.3, the IPART submission. I love finance stuff. 10.4, I would like to pull that one out, which is the Adopt a Tree program. 10.9 is noted as a response to a question with notice. It's actually a notice of motion. From memory, it was Councillor Fardell's
Correct.
notice of motion. I don't
Yes.
know whether or not she wants to speak to it. I'll pull that out because I might have a few things to say. I haven't got anything prepared, so I'll probably have to wing it. Um, 11.5, I would like to pull out BTC 22.111, which is 19 Gladstone Street, Bexley, renewal of 8.7 metre work zone. I would also like to pull out 11.5 BTC 22.120, which is the temporary delegation to council officers to approve work zones until 31/3/23. Nothing frightening in any of those, just a few suggestions.
Thank you,
Madam Mayor.
councillor Hannah.
Thank you.
Councillor Douglas. Councillor Sedrak. All right. Oh, yeah, councillor Muscat.
Sorry, you don't need to pull out, item 11.3 CPE 22.033, as I'll be staying in the room for that one. Doesn't need to be pulled out. It's only the first one.
Yeah, that's a division. We have to pull that out. Thank you, councillor Muscat. Because it's related to a planning matter. All right. So then that the record that then takes us to that we will deal with them all in, except for the ones we've pulled out, that we'll deal with them in one resolution. May I have a mover? Move councillor Saranowski, seconded councillor Wada. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare that carried. Thank you, councillors. That now takes us to the public forum. So we have some speakers registered to speak at the public forum. So the first speaker that was scheduled to speak was Miss Jennifer Whitten, chairperson for item 10.1, which was the draft general purpose financial statements and statement by councillors and management for the year ended 30 June 2022. Unfortunately, Miss Whitten has been delayed this evening and won't be able to join us. However, we will look at that particular item. And is there a mover? Moved councillor Wada, seconded councillor Morrissey. Councillor Wada, would you like to speak to it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, as you probably know, with the report, great report, reading through it, as the Mayor during the 2021 year, I'd like to acknowledge the excellent result Bayside Council has achieved in the financial statements. And if you specifically look at Table 1, Summary of Financial Statements, you'll see, councillors, we've had an increase of asset value, which is quite impressive, of 14%, from 1.8 billion to 2.1 billion, driven by Bayside's commitment to providing affordable housing through positive developer outcomes. We also had an increase in operating cash due to council's officers' tireless effort in securing grant funding, especially through the COVID period, which we've had the COVID for 2 years, and we still managed to do that, achieve it, which is a great result, Madam Mayor. Despite many challenges with staffing due to COVID, we managed to maintain costs, which did not increase. I'm pleased that under my mayoralty through this period, our report shows that council achieved a surplus before capital gains and contributions of 7.8 million. And congratulations to the staff as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, councillor Wada. Councillor Morrissey.
Thank you. I'm sure the chair, Ms. Whitten, was going to say a few words, and it's really unfortunate on the circumstance she can't be here tonight. So I suppose just on behalf of that committee, I really wanted to acknowledge the hard work that has been undertaken by the whole finance department, led by our previous director, and certainly now in capable hands with Mr. Sheridan. I remember in the last term of council when there was looking at all different source documents and records and books and things like that, and it was almost when we're working with the audit office, the team had to hedge their bets on what was going to be the right outcome. They actually didn't quite know. So they put something up there. Audit office said no. Audit office said yes sometimes. And then we'd move. And then the next thing they would say, yes, we've got this one. So it was really an important relationship developed with, not by the internal audit team, with our external audit partners, which is the audit office. Mr. Matthew Walker was a very key player in that, and his whole team. And I think Ms. Whitten would have really wanted to acknowledge that. But more importantly, we've got at each term of council, we have a new panel of independent members, and they provide really great insights, drawing upon best practice from their expertise in their own industry, along with their involvement with other committees across the Sydney Basin. And, you know, looking at the results where we've got, you know, 6.1% inflation at end of June, 7.3% inflation with the last quarter end of September, and for Bayside Council to be in the position it's currently in is a truly outstanding result. So I just wanted to take 2 minutes to acknowledge the really hard work in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Okay, no further. Councillor Hannah?
Can't help myself, Madam Mayor. Look, I think someone famous once said, what a beautiful set of numbers. I'm not sure who that might have been. But no doubt about it, this council is in an extraordinarily solid financial position. And it's testament to the hard work of the finance people here in particular. Putting these accounts and everything together and getting them through audit is not an easy task. So definitely my congratulations on all of that. I just want to remind everyone here, however, this is a classic example. You've heard about the saying, asset rich, income poor. Well, I would describe this council and some other councils as asset rich, income deficient. Revaluation of the assets does not help our position because that adds to the depreciation. And of course, that brings me back again to the changes to the developer contributions. Now, if we can actually get that through, that will help us address this problem. No doubt about it, absolutely fantastic. I mean, we're up close to $400 million now in restricted funds, but they are restricted funds. So we've got to make sure that we continue to focus on pulling all the various levers that are available to us to increase the annuity streams that are not subject to rate capping and not subject to restrictions. So this is a fabulous result. This is fantastic to be in this position, but we are asset rich and income deficient. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Any further speakers? Councillor Souness.
Indicators, though, on the surface, it's a fantastic outcome. I can see the numbers there, the depreciation schedule, those it's a little bit scary, increasing our value and then losing it at the other end. But from the OLG's perspective, Office of Local Government, our indicators, our prime indicators, 6 that they have, how are we performing against that ratio? In other words, the operating performance, own source operating revenue, unrestricted cash flow, debt to service ratio, all that list that we've had that we covered a few years ago. We were marginal then. I think we're marginal now as well. There's still work to be done. I don't want to sort of flag that we should be increasing rates like some of the other councils have been doing so we can get in a better cash position. But again, OLG is looking over our shoulder. They want to know where we're at in terms of these benchmarks. Can I just get a comment on that?
Thank you, Councillor Souness. I'll hand over to the General Manager.
Through the Chair, I'm pleased to say that of the 6 indicators, Council excels in 5. The only one where we haven't met the indicator is our outstanding debt ratio. And as you're aware, Council has a policy around the collection of outstanding rate debt from pensioners, which really does impact on that final number. We are at the moment putting quite a lot of effort into collecting outstanding debts from non-pensioner debtors. So that's something that we're really focused on at the moment. The executives see regularly our highest outstanding debts that have accumulated. So it's something we are working on. But this is the best result we have achieved against the local government indicators since the formation of Bayside.
Thank you, General Manager. And, you know, it doesn't mean that our work stops. We're very conscious of financial sustainability into the future, and we've got, as councillors know, a couple of strategies that we're currently working on, and that one of those is the property working group, looking at, you know, how our property is working for return on investment. And so there's a number of levers that we're looking at in order to you know, increase the revenue in looking at all options, because rate increases are the last option. You've got to explore every opportunity. So I think it's fair to say that on behalf of councillors, that we please pass on our thanks. There's a lot of work that goes into the financials, and so if you could pass on our thanks for a great result and all the time, energy and effort that goes into it. Thank you. All right, councillors, that brings me to, so I'll say all those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. All right. All right, so that takes us to 10.5. So we have a number of speakers into this matter, which is a petition regarding the St Mark's Coptic Church at Arncliffe. So in a moment, I'm going to invite the speakers, and I've also asked the GM that following the speakers just to present some updated information in relation to this matter. So there are a number of speakers. So we've got Mr. Mina Hanna, Church Secretary for St Mark's Coptic Orthodox Church. So I'm going to invite Mr. Hanna up in a moment, and who will be allocated for 5 minutes, speaking for the officer recommendation. I've got 4 speakers against the officer recommendation, so I'm going to allow each of those speakers 2 minutes each to speak, and I ask that you don't repeat what the speaker before has said, so in the interest of time. So I now invite Mr. Hanna to come to the stand, please.
Thank you, Chair. I represent St Mark's Church today as the Church Secretary and a parishioner for over 40 years of that church. We were somewhat surprised by the petition presented to Council, which we were not notified of until it appeared on Bayside Council's website early this week. The petition in its current form raises questions as to its credibility, as well as its claim to represent all the neighbours of the church. The petition against the church, which was signed between 22 September and 28 September this year, makes a number of erroneous claims, which seems like a desperate attempt from certain individuals to smear the reputation of the church and gain the attention of Council by expressing claims which are unsubstantiated and exaggerated at best. Let me state at the outset, Chair, the church has not used or utilised the properties referred to since mid-August of this year. It has essentially been vacant for over 2 months now. This was pursuant to consultation with council officers and Ms Wallace, and a commitment by the church to lodge a development application or planning proposal as soon as possible. The church's town planner has already communicated this to the General Manager, and the process is well underway as per our commitment to the Council. Chair, before this petition is formally tabled and acknowledged in Council, I request that a member of Council go through the unredacted version of the petition and formally identify which signatories are in fact neighbours of the church and can actually lay claim to be potentially impacted by the site in question. Technically, the church has about 4 or 5 immediate neighbours who can potentially claim a direct impact on their properties from alleged activities. How did the organiser of this petition manage to secure nearly 200 signatures when it is clear there cannot logically be 200 neighbours impacted by any of the church activities noted in the petition? The church borders Arncliffe Park on Wollongong Road and Brough Avenue with only just a few residents. An analysis of the handwriting on the petition suggests that 1 or 2 signatories seem to be completing the petition on behalf of multiple residents, whether with their consent or not. This needs to be further investigated by Council before tabling it today. Chair, we call on a number of neighbours to declare and disclose to Council and their fellow neighbours that they are in fact seeking a significant financial advantage for themselves by offering their properties to the church for sale at significantly inflated prices and threatening to attack the church if it doesn't accept. This is important and must be disclosed in the interest of full disclosure and transparency in front of this Council. If the organiser of this petition has previously requested exorbitant sums for their small blocks, then the credibility and integrity of this petition needs to be called into question. I need to make it clear, Chair, that previously the properties referred to have only ever been used for a maximum of 3 hours on a Sunday morning. Any other time of the week, day or night, the area is under lock and key. To put it simply, it's dead quiet. Bayside Council rangers who have visited the church have confirmed the same. I invite councillors to drive past the church Monday to Saturday, day or night, and inspect for themselves the use of the properties. For 6.75 days a week, the properties referred to by the residents as, quote, affecting their health, safety, well-being and quality of life, close quote, are empty and quiet, much like a cemetery. There is no noise or activities, no lights, essentially no one present. There is no noise or activities, no lights, and essentially no one present. Most services are on a Saturday or Sunday and conclude by 1 p.m. Other than special feasts, which neighbours are notified of in advance, that pretty much is it. So on what basis are the residents suggesting that a church which is essentially predominantly vacant and clean for 90% of the week, causing them such concern and angst? Currently, with the open space provided, all immediate neighbours have unfettered solar access and cross-ventilation into their yards and dwellings. They have the benefit, Chair, of clean open space adjacent to their dwellings and complete silence for 90% of the week. What more can a resident wish for? There is more noise, light and traffic being generated and emitted by the new synthetic soccer field on Wollongong Road than by our modest leisure park as referred to in the petition. Prior to the church closing the site in question, the synthetic turf areas were used predominantly to allow social distancing as part of the COVID-19 response plan requested by the New South Wales Department of Health. The additional space did not attract additional congregants, it simply accommodated existing congregants over a wide area. The claim in the petition, therefore, that the use of the site had created disturbance, property damage and untold stress is unfounded and simply illogical based on the facts. The claim that, quote, the church has continued to use the property, unquote, even after meeting with council was also simply untrue. As stated earlier, the place has been under lock and key since August. I'm happy to provide council with a copy of the CCTV footage of the site for the past 2 months for council to review at their leisure. You won't find much happening at all.
Madam Mayor, I'll move an extension.
Thank you.
Seconder? Second?
Thank you. Thank you.
Continue.
Claims in the petition that there are health concerns, quote, safety issues, quote, offensive language, quote, and damage to properties, quote, is vague, unsubstantiated, and we submit absolute nonsense. We deny the claims categorically. The petition also alleges that there have been years, quote, years of direct failed communication with the church, unquote. Every neighbour of the church, Chair, has the mobile phone number of our clergies. When our clergy receive text messages or calls from neighbours, whatever the time, they respond and deal with the issue immediately. This has been the case for decades, which is why we were surprised that the neighbours met directly with councillors without first raising these issues with the church. There is an open line to the church. We recently also established a mobile phone hotline which has been issued to residents and manned by a member of the church. Whatever limited issues are raised are addressed. The church also has its own scout group which have been active for decades within the church and the community. They are visible and present every Sunday and assist where required. The church, as previously committed to council, also utilises the Arncliffe train station car park on Sundays and encourages parishioners to park there and utilise the church shuttle bus to take them to the church. This service is there to alleviate any local traffic concerns and has been very successful in doing so. This has been in place for decades. Before any major feasts, neighbours are also notified via a letterbox drop so as to make them aware of the church services. During the COVID-19 lockdown, the church also communicated with and served and provided for the needs of some of the neighbouring residents who were struggling. The church is always conscious of its immediate neighbours and the need to respect them. The church has always been agreeable to council directions and advice. The relationship between the church and council and the church and neighbours is a partnership of great importance to the church. It always has been and always will be. Coincidentally, last week I had the privilege of being invited to and attending at New South Wales Parliament House the valedictory speech of the Honourable Shaukat Soleimani, himself a proud former Rockdale Council councillor and a friend of the church, who recorded his speech in Parliament a personal highlight of welcoming the late His Holiness Pope Shenouda III to Rockdale Council on His Holiness's last visit. Our history here in the council runs deep. One thing I ask on behalf of the church, finally, one thing I ask on behalf of the church, that there be more respectful dialogue from council officers to the church. Many of our emails and communications of recent have not been responded to. Respect dictates this should not be the case. Chair, I thank you for your time today, for the time to present to council, and for allowing me to address the council chambers on behalf of St Mark's Coptic Orthodox Church. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hammond. I would now like to invite Miss Sabaggio, affected neighbour who is speaking for the officer recommendation. Lani? If no, I'm sorry, we can't accept any handouts. Sorry, we can't accept any handouts. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lani. I'm just a mom who wants to protect my home. I would like to thank the council for accepting this matter and the petition. I appreciate yours and everyone's time and patience. I would like to share visual summaries St. Mark Coptic Church Uncliffe have done and affected to our neighborhood that have been repeated throughout the matter's years of history, such parking, noise, unapproved developments, commercial cooking, late-night gathering, contact right to the church for over 2 decades. Me, myself, do it for 3 years just to contact the church directly without any solution. Actually, I want to hand out this one, but you're not allowed, then I just, yeah. Here are some visual summary. That's this one that I would like to give it to you, but then not allowed. And then, yeah, while you prepare, I'll be playing some recording, and please excuse to some bad language when I recorded.
We can't play recordings, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Council.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right,
So
so-
if you just make the points around in relation to why you
Okay.
are
So
for the officer's recommendation.
yeah, for the first one, from this one that we collected, all we gathering the evidence in here, it says the first time, it's all about the text complaining to the council. And then one of the council, when we first complained, they said, oh, there's no one complaining. And then actually, yes, it's have been 2 decades through this one, through all the evidence that we get. And then the second one, we're doing with the small problem getting bigger through this one here, the playground and the equipment, and the noise become unbearable and everything in here. And then the pages on 3 is like history parking, that nothing new. It's already been 2 decades. And then we collected evidence through everything. And then the third page is doing the asbestos, which is the knock down the house without telling all the neighborhood what's all about, because this one is affected our health. And then the fourth one, where's the location is getting bigger and bigger from the church. And then, they're doing it, everything, because they're not building anything yet, so they're doing it for party. And
Thank you. Thank you. A seconder for the extension, second. Would you like to just summarise?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, and then keep doing it. And then they're trying to do it the gate, but then what happening? The gate doesn't nothing, right? There's nothing to do with it. Like still happening, keep going on. Like the ball banging, and then the smash chairs to the fences. And then you can see here also the fences is damaged. Not only my side, but in their side too. And then this is large gathering. They're doing it because they're not building anything yet. So they're doing a party, and then they're doing leisure and everything. They can do it. I've been complaining, but then, yeah. And then this is kind of breaching of privacy, because of like the ball coming to my backyard, and then kids jump over. And then I've been complaining to fathers, and then, yeah, they're still doing it. And then they're still throwing ball and then playing. And then it's not the small kids playing it, the big kids playing it. You know how unbearable that's the noise? Yeah, I think that's all. It's very,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, we have a second speaker. So just keeping in mind there's another 3 speakers. So I'd like to invite Mr. Jason Lee to come and speak. Sorry? So is Mr. Jason Lee here? No? Okay, that then takes us to Miss Anani. So Miss Anani is speaking for.
So I'm here to do my best to do a public speak, but and I'll have my daughter just for moral support. If I can't handle it, she'll take over.
Thank you. So
I am happy. No, it's okay. I am happy to provide evidence against everything the church has said. We obviously need to be given a chance. So there's a lot of things that he said that I'm more than happy to provide evidence if we do give a chance.
So this, just to reiterate, this is an opportunity for you to put forward your points.
Yeah, we, to be honest, just to be fair on us, that this is our first time.
No,
So,
no, that's
yeah,
why I'm
yeah,
helping you.
yeah,
to
thank
just,
you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor, Councillors and General Manager for taking the time to look into the matter. It's greatly appreciated. I would first like to make it clear that I am not here to make a complaint, but here to protect my home and my family. Because of this, I'm very grateful to be living in a multicultural country where no one is above the law, regardless of their believed power, influence, or right to affect people's health, well-being, safety, and home. We, as a community, find comfort and security in a place of worship. It is where we go to find protection, and that is exactly what I did. I went straight to the respected father for help, and so did many others. However, their lack of success is made clear through my presence here. I am personally a strong believer of loving your neighbour and treating them with respect and compassion. I believe my family and community have the right to come home to a safe and a peaceful environment where parking your car is not always a struggle. Screaming kids, swearing, loud gathering, and object slamming against a metal gate is not a background noise you have to live with. If you are somehow able to tune out that noise, there is still the chance an object is thrown over the fence and hits your head. And if you manage to avoid that, be careful that you are not actively inhaling asbestos fibre from illegal demolition without your knowledge. Just when you think it's over, the late gathering will keep you up at night, only for the cycle to repeat. As I look deeper into this matter, I listened to many of my neighbours' past experience and came across countless letters and emails. And despite this, these experiences extending back almost 2 decades, I felt they were my own. This is the very reason we are concerned. There is a clear pattern and reoccurrence of the same issue and failed process, leaving us and countless others with additional problems rather than a solution. We will no longer accept phrases, we only need one person to complain. You're the only one complaining. We didn't know this was happening. Not enough people are complaining. The inefficient attempt of resolution, unspecified matter update, specifically exhaust and confuse the residents into slowly withdrawing their effort.
Can I ask you to moved, seconded, another minute?
Okay. Yeah, she could.
Sorry, just a second. Further, we question if the potential actions taken are directed to each of our concerns and if they will provide effective resolutions. Fortunately, Part 71 of the Botany Bay Development Control Plan, as well as all other relevant parts of the DCP, confirms our concerns as they have already been extensively regulated with controls and guidelines outlined. We appreciate the steps that have been taken to comply. However, we do not want history to repeat itself by ensuring that these steps progress and do not get reversed as has happened in the past. Now, I would like to conclude by expressing that at the very core of Christianity is the concept of love thy neighbour. I believe that we are in every sense of the word your neighbours and very much affected by your actions. I hope and trust that you will consider our request and concerns and act accordingly to the law we live under. We urge the Council and the relevant representatives to direct their efforts into developing an effective and fair solution for everyone involved so we can avoid history repeating itself. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also just like to note that Councillor McDougall is also online, just so councillors are aware. So there's another speaker registered, Miss Mahana. Oh, okay, so there are no other speakers, so Mr. Lee is not here. Okay, so there'll be no further speakers to this matter. Therefore, we will deal with 10.5. And just before we do that, I might just hand over to the General Manager just to give a recent update.
So councillors, this is just a short little, a bit of background and describing where we're at the moment and how we think we can move forward. Just by way of background, there were a number of site meetings and some of you participated in those. And then on the 17th of August this year, I and a number of council officers met with representatives from the church to discuss some of these matters that have been raised tonight. At that meeting, the church indicated that they were thinking about a master plan exercise for their site. Now, as many of you will know, a master plan is the beginning of a very lengthy and complex process. And so it was discussed and agreed that a more practical approach would be for the church to submit a development application for a change of use for the acquired residential properties. In the interim, the area would be used for quiet supervised activities only. Based on the continuing concern of neighbouring residents, in particular about noise, and the fact that a DA for a change of use or a building information certificate for the unauthorised works hadn't been submitted, orders were issued on the church some 6 weeks later on the 30th of September. I want to reinforce that these applications are essential to allow council's professional staff to assess the suitability of the properties and the unauthorised structure for their intended use, including reviewing fire, safety and access issues. Yesterday, I received a letter from EPM Projects, the church's planning consultant. They've requested a meeting to discuss the change of use DA and a building information certificate for the playground. They've also asked for the orders to be held in abeyance until such times as those two matters can be determined. In response, I've written confirming that a meeting has been agreed to. I want to say there are two essentials for council to consider. We need to know a time frame for submitting the DA and the BIC, and secondly, very importantly, that not only should the order be in abeyance, but use of the residential properties for any other purpose other than residential should also be in abeyance until the DA and the BIC have been determined. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. And just before we consider this item, I'd just like to disclose that I've met with residents and I also met with the church as well. So I have met with both groups to hear both perspectives. So we will now discuss item 10.5. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Barlow, seconded Councillor Werner. Councillor Barlow.
Well, I did actually go to that site meeting where the Ward 2 councillors were and residents. And having been a councillor for as long as I have, and having known a person that lived in the house, the two-storey house, I have been privy to all the complaints for at least 20 years. And what I have seen here today, I'd actually ask if the residents' submissions or the papers could be handed to the governance office and we could have it later on, because they had it here. So if they would like to hand them to our manager of governance, we can all receive a copy later on. Because we actually have had correspondence. I've got a video, the noise, everything is there. I cannot they're not there 90% of the week, but I had them playing football, banging against the fence. The residents aren't making it up. So they've got to be good neighbours. And using the houses and the house next door, the white one, they pulled that house down without permission, I believe. You've got a backyard that's bigger than any other one's backyard. Got a children's playground there that you have in a playground in a park. That wasn't given permission to put there. That is quite large, and I had a complaint about that when it was first built. Didn't go down there, my fault, didn't go and look. It's something there that a resident had asked me about. So I believe the petition, we thank the council for taking it seriously and the orders are being taken, and I hope the church understands, yes, we've got a DA handed in yesterday. A planning consultant or whatever that happened. So really, they've got to realise they've got to be good neighbours. I mean, I have been here that long and the complaints have been there. There is no way there's been no noise. But anyway, hopefully that with the petition and the generation of what's going, maybe it will come to fruition that they all become good neighbours again.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Are there any further speakers? Councillor Saranovsky.
Madam Mayor, thank you. I have no issues in terms of what's been moved. we can't, as elected councillors, give a direction to the staff in any way in terms of the orders. But what I would like to advocate, if it's possible to the movers, is that where's a council, civic leaders, there's got to be a point. The church is not going to go away, and the residents' concerns aren't going to go away. So whether we like it or not, the church is there. What I'm going to advocate is that either yourself or the deputy mayor chair a meeting with the residents and the church together on site, all the ward councillors, because there's too many conflicting, and I accept what the residents are saying, but the church is saying that the building allegedly every Sunday is only available for 2 hours a day. Now, the only way this is going to get resolved in terms of neighbours, if it's possible, is to get the two parties together. We as a council chair that meeting and have a better dialogue in terms of the issues. Councillor Bowler is right, there is parking problems there. But can I just say, I'm a Christian. I would never want this council to put up a sign and say, do not go to church because the parishioners are going, or the mosques or whatever. The churches and mosques and every religious building, it should be encouraged to have more and more parishioners there. We should never be in a position where we're going to stop people going to church or to a mosque. My church at Rockdale, as the church of St. Petca, they probably have about maybe 20 or 30 parking spots. On Christmas and Easter, they get about 20,000 people going to the church, and there's only 20 car parking spots. And as a Christian, I would never want anyone to tell me I can't go to a church or a place of my worship. But getting back to this situation, Madam Mayor, I think it's important that if we can try and mediate, we'll have a meeting with the church and the residents and see if there's a common bond for the neighbours to all work together. But in terms of the order, we can't, if there's fire regulations, whatever, we can't withdraw that. Unfortunately, because we get it in a normal, I mean, I had a chap that came and saw me in Brighton, and the director said there was an order served on a business, and they wanted that order withdrawn. And I indicated to them, well, what happens in case of a fire? I don't want to be the person that would withdraw your order. So whatever the regulations are, we must stick to that. We must stick to that on it. And if we can, as I said, try and mediate, we'll try and get everybody together. We'll never solve the problem of the parking. We'll never. I've gone to a certain chicken shop on a Sunday. I can't find parking, and his shop is miles away from the thing. So we'll never be able to solve the parking issue at all unless there's I do recall a few years ago the church came up with an idea of providing buses from at Arncliffe Street, I think, from memory, to transport the parishioners from the station and also up at Willow Creek. Because my greatest fear, to be honest with you, when the soccer playing games are on and the church it is very tight, particularly in Bro Avenue. In cases of emergencies, it always scares me that someone has to come in and drive out ambulances and what have you. But I think, as I said, I'll support the motion that's been moved. But if we can consider chairing a meeting of both parties together.
Thank you, Councillor Sanosy. Just to, before there's any other speakers, so the recommendation is to accept the permission and note that it is with the GM for action. So and as the GM has indicated, it is a professional planning matter. So it's something that we have to be conscious of. Councillor Douglas.
I just had a question. I was quite intrigued to hear that there is actually hope for them to expand the site and buy more buildings from the residents. It sounds like there is more to this story in terms of the growth of this site that we haven't had a full update on. Is it possible that we could get some more information about that?
The future acquisition of properties is not a matter for discussion here.
That's the intention of the church, is to acquire more properties.
We don't know what the intention of the church is. So, Councillor Douglas, at this point in time, we're just focused on whether council determines to accept the petition and notes that it is with the GM. So that's what we're considering tonight. Any further, Councillor Naji?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a ward councillor, since 2004, there's been a number of issues that have been raised by residents, and I wholeheartedly understand residents' issues and the impact that they have, whether being next to the church or whether being next to the mosque. We've had all these complaints from everywhere. What we have in front of us is a note, receive a note, and for the GM to action. Now that there is a planning proposal or a DA, councillors cannot get involved in the process or the decision of it. But I concur one thing with Councillor Saranovsky, and the elders usually, who's been around for a while, understand the area, understand the situation, understand. Like I've seen part of the petition that it says that council has failed for the last 2 decades. I don't agree with that. I think we've had issues in the past. We got the residents, the church and the council involved, and there was always some sort of a solution to keep everybody happy. And when I heard the speaker say, love thy neighbour, that hit me home. That is true. Doesn't matter what religion you are, whether you're Muslim, you're Christian, other beliefs, major religions, they all tell you to love thy neighbour. And I think this council, and I agree, and it's up to the GM, is to have a mechanism to get the neighbours and the church, because rightly so what Councillor Saranovsky, the church not going to go away and the residents not going to go away either by moving or anything. We need to get them all together through the council and see how they can come up with a solution to keep everybody happy. If it's the impact, which I understand from the residents, it's impacting about noise and a lot of other things, the church has to work with the residents because they're both going to be there for a long time. As for acquiring properties, I can assure Councillor Douglas, it doesn't matter what religion, whether Christian, whether Catholics, whether Coptics, whether Muslims. I mean, look at the mosque. They buy properties as well because there will be an expansion in the future. There's more children born into a religion, whether Muslim or Christian. So if a prerogative up to the church or the mosque, if someone wants to sell their property and they want to acquire, so be it. That's freedom. That's democracy. You know, so we can't say there's a hidden agenda or anything. I'm saying it how it is. I think we need to get everybody together and start, because what I've worked out, and I might be wrong, that there is a lack of communication between the church and the residents. And I think if we can get them to do that and keep everybody happy, make sure the residents aren't impacted, so be it. I think we have achieved, again, like we have done in the past. And I think councillors like Councillor Wada, who's been there for a long time, Councillor Bala and Councillor Sunas, Councillor Saranovsky and Councillor Cedric, we've been through those parts, whether it's the mosque, which we've had a lot of complaints, and we had to, you know, get the neighbours, the residents and the mosque people to work things out, and we've done that with the Coptic church. And I hope we come to a solution to keep everybody happy. It doesn't impact the residents and the church doing the right thing, and keep praying for God. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Naji. Councillor Cedric?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been a little bit on this council for a little bit less than some of our elders here, 10 years. And ever since I've been on this council, the church has been an issue. Whether I am from the Coptic faith myself or the constant complaints. So I want to thank, first of all, the residents for coming out here and providing this feedback to council. Just because I'm from that faith doesn't mean that if the church is doing something wrong that we can't fix it, we can't look at it and look at there's a process. So I want to thank you for that. And I think before we go any further, I think there's got to be one thing clear here. The church is not going anywhere. And I think what Councillor Nagy and Savranovsky have said is very important in that we all need to get to work together. There's got to be love and unity between both sides. And there's a process right now. So it's now with the GM. There's a process. If the church is doing wrong, whether they're from Lebanese faith or Egyptian, it doesn't matter. If they're doing wrong, the GM will go through that process with the mayor and so forth, and we'll go through that. I think there's a few things happening here. There's obviously a breakdown. The neighbourly love is not happening anymore. The partnership between neighbours, it's not happening. So I think it's really important that the church, through council, we reach out and we get to a common agreement where there's better partnership. And this breakdown happens with all neighbours, okay? But what you know is the church is not going anywhere and we've got to work together. So I don't agree that having a big backyard is a bad thing, as Councillor Barlow has mentioned. If anything, we on council, we always want more green space. But I think what we need to do is be careful of the process. There's a process in place. There's no use of putting, they do this, they do this, they do that, they do that. We're going to throw around all this unsubstantiated information that's going to bring people down for no reason. But there is obviously an issue, and I hear what the people are saying, and I think, like the Mayor said and previous speakers, the best way to go forward, whether it be through Councillor Savranovsky and Nagy, to have some kind of group, a committee, that we could have a representative from the church committee, as well as the community, and to really represent what's going on. I know we've had issues with parking. I know we've had issues with bins, with noise. We need to get it right. This is going to be for the next 50 years. So if that's the case, I don't have a problem at the moment. All this is accept this petition. It's not changing anything from us on council. We accept it, no worries. But what are we going to do with that? We're going to deal with the process. Let the church meet with the GM, decide what's right and wrong, put their application in, and hopefully, we could have a better relationship between the community. And I know the church does a lot of work with the community, but the community are saying they're not. So let's work out what's going on, and hopefully we could have more love thy neighbour, especially leading up to Christmas. Maybe you guys should be giving out free food outside of Arncliffe there, giving out a big sausage sizzle, get the priest to cook the barbecue, and maybe the mayor will help as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the last speaker in bringing up the fact that there is a process. Yes, there is a process in place, and it's unfortunate that a 200-person, in inverted commas, petition had to bring that process out into the fore and force a planning issue, or planning decision, or planning proposal to be brought to council. That shouldn't have happened. That should have happened years ago. How can who today tears down a building and says, "Oh, maybe they won't notice"? Nobody. For years and years and years, I've been hearing the same old story in the same old tune, and it doesn't happen just to this church. There's other organisations around the place, and I'm not picking sides, but I will say that some of the churches think they're bigger than other organisations, bigger than the neighbourhood. They're allowed to do what they like. They like to take over the streets. They like to put their rubbish where they like. They like to do what.
Let's focus on the issue.
And the focus is the planning proposal.
Councillor Tsounis, please.
Yes.
Let's avoid any derogatory
I'm not
terms.
picking-
You are, and I've asked you to focus on the
Okay.
issue.
All right. Thank you, Madam Chair. So the issue is, it's fantastic that the opportunity now has arisen for a planning proposal to be brought forward. The opportunity that other councillors have mentioned of getting the two groups together is fantastic and well overdue. The conversation should be happening constantly, because they need to know, they need feedback. The church needs to have feedback. They're not listening maybe to some of the feedback. There are kids that are playing in the backyards, kicking a ball on the fence. Unless the church knows that that's happening, how are they going to stop it? So it's very simple. The feedback has to go back, the communication has to be in place, but the planning proposal also, which is probably higher up on the level, needs to be dealt with as soon as possible. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Awada?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I have been on a site meeting with yourself and the ward councillors. I haven't actually met with the church. I know that you've met with the church, but look, at the end of the day, I'm quite surprised that's turned into a religion argument about the church. And when I spoke to the residents, they have no issue whatsoever with the church. It's not about the church. It's not about praying. It's not about even the parking. I mean, for what I'm hearing from residents is soccer being played at night. What I would suggest, we couldn't hear the evidence tonight because they weren't able to. We'll get the documents later on. But what I suggest, and I know we're dealing with the petition here and there's an officer's recommendation to accept it. I mean, if the residents have evidence about what's been happening, they've got recording, I would be saying, I've heard what Mr. Hanna had to say. I'd be contacting the person that spoke tonight, and maybe they haven't heard it. Maybe they should go after tonight's meeting, contact the residents and say, give us the evidence that you weren't able to show at council. That's only fair. Because when I went on site, the reality is I've had calls at 10 p.m. 10 p.m. I had to pick up my phone. The church might not be aware of it. But I can't possibly ignore the fact that someone has called me traffic, all that issue that's been discussed about Christianity, and that's irrelevant. When I have a call at 10 p.m. saying, why don't you actually drive and listen to the noise that we have to live with? I mean, that wouldn't be acceptable if I was living there. So I think if the church is not aware of it, they should basically leave here tonight and then contact the residents of concern and then basically say, show us the evidence, give us a recording of what you've heard. I mean, everything else that's been said, I respect what's been said, but it's irrelevant. Parking is not the issue. It's the issue, the houses, the space has been used by young people late at night that's not giving any comfort to the residents. So that's what I would be advising the church to do. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wyder. Are there any further speakers?
Madam Mayor,
Right of reply, Councillor Barlow?
I thought maybe I'd move a motion, suggestion from Councillor Savranowski and Councillor Naji that we have a meeting with the church and the residents to deal with it, because obviously the church said they've got no noise problems. I have seen the noise, I've seen the pictures, but they were emailed to me a long time ago. And I never mentioned parking. I mean, that's a problem wherever there's somewhat, a big gathering. So I'm not worried about that. It's the fact, I think the plan of management of the whole site has been asked for, I think, a number of times, never been done. So there's a whole lot of issues there. And it was just that the residents are happy that the petition's here and we're acting on it. But I feel if we had a meeting with some councillors, the church and the residents, if they're happy to do it, it might be a lot easier to talk across the table as well than instead of coming up here and saying something. So, and, showing those photos, I think they were the ones that might have been sent to me a month ago or whatever. Because when we had that meeting down there, the residents were advised to note all the nuisance noise, and they did. They noted things. So it's all there. The evidence is there. So I'd say could I move a motion that we have a meeting with the church, some nominated church people and some residents within the next, and hopefully, and as the mayor, the general manager has said, they've served the notice. The council's serious. They can't ignore it like they have before. And I'm going back maybe 20 years. But there's a concept there, but a plan of management, I think, has been asked at least once before. So,
So I guess, Councillor Barlow, there's the professional planning matter that is in process and sits outside of that process. But then the option then is that if surrounding residents and the church are agreeable to sitting together to deal with matters separate to any professional planning matters, so just so nothing to do with use, but just around the other issues that have been raised, that if you want to put forward that motion, then that motion would be that a meeting be held, that the church and residents and councillors be invited to a meeting to discuss the issues raised tonight. So that's a would you like that to be a foreshadowed motion? So you want to leave one? Yes. Okay, so we have a motion on the screen. We'll just wait for... Yep. All right, so...
Timing on it, or?
So we could say in the next month?
Yep, okay.
But that's subject to that all the parties are agreeable as well. We can't, we can only suggest and host, but at the end of the day, it's up to both residents and the church should they wish to participate. All right, we've got the motion in front of us. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, I declare that carried. Thank you for coming tonight and raising and speaking to the item. All right, that takes us to the final public speaker. So this is in relation to 12.2, Notice of Motion Safer Pedestrian Crossings on Bestick Street. So we have a Miss O'Leary, an interested resident who is speaking for the motion. Is Miss O'Leary here? Online?
Yes. Can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you. You try again.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, thank you, Council, for letting me speak tonight. I have 3 children, 2 attending Kiama Public School, and my youngest is at North Brighton Preschool. I initially walked them to school instead of driving, as I felt it was better for their health and for the environment. My eldest is now asking to walk to school by herself, and I feel they know due to the lack of safe places to cross the road on Bestick. The closest crossing we have is the island at the corner of Francis Avenue and Bestick Street. We do not have right of way there and often must wait for a kind person to stop halfway. We wait on the island as we check for oncoming traffic from the opposite side. The traffic is turned to enter the roundabout, not for pedestrians. There is barely enough room for a pram and an additional child on the island. Crossing here. If we walk further up towards the Grand Parade, there are no actual pedestrian crossings along Bestick Street to get to school, except at the Grand Parade. We must run across 4 lanes if there is a break in the traffic, and if there isn't, we wait behind the median turning lane sign halfway across the road until we fully cross. Every time. Giving children a safe place to cross would encourage myself and other parents to walk their children to school more frequently. Although it is not far, it is a big trek for a small child to ask them to walk up Bestick Street to West Botany or to the Grand Parade for the nearest pedestrian crossing at the lights. Many children and adults would benefit from the small daily exercise of walking to school. The school zone boundaries have now changed since Kiama Public has expanded from an infant school to a primary school to include several additional streets between Bestick and Bay Street. Building a safe crossing now allows the council to be ready in the future for the increased intake of children attending Kiama Public School. Hopefully, the Muddy Creek Precinct will also be hosting many events in the future, which will also attract heavy pedestrian traffic. I request that the Bayside Council advocate for safer pedestrian crossings on Bestick Street to help facilitate the movement of school children and the community across Bestick Street to walk safely to Kiama Public School, the Muddy Creek Precinct and North Brighton Preschool. I'd like the council to investigate possible options such as pedestrian overpass, a set of traffic lights with pedestrian crossings at Francis Avenue in lieu of the current roundabout, a zebra crossing across Bestick Street to connect to the Muddy Creek path, or improve pedestrian traffic islands across Bestick Street. I thank you, Council.
Thank you, Miss O'Leary. All right, we'll deal with item 12.2, notice and motion safer pedestrian crossings on Bestick Street. Moved Councillor Douglas, seconded Councillor McDougall on the screen. Thank you. Any speakers?
I think the motion speaks for itself, but just to briefly outline it for the community who might be tuning in, Kiama Primary School has gone through a big upgrade recently. It's gone from an infant school, which was just K-2 with about 80 students, to a full K-6 school. It's a brand new school. They'll have over 450 students, and as part of that, the zoning for the area has changed. So previously it ended around Bay Street, around Bestick Street. It now goes all the way to Bay Street. So students have to then cross, a larger and larger number of students have to cross Bestick Street on their way to and from school with their parents. And if you go in that area, you will see every day, you know, some parents risking the crossing. It is quite scary to perceive. And myself as a child who actually got hit by a car because of a bus being parked on the wrong side of the road during a school excursion, the sun was in my eyes, and kids don't have peripheral vision. You know, I'm lucky to have survived. So I really do want to advocate for this Safer Streets initiative. I know that the road itself, Bestick Street, is not a council street, but what we can do as a council is advocate to Transport for New South Wales to recognise the change in use and the importance of this as an active transport route that, you know, we need to protect our kids basically and our families, and also by doing that advocate for less cars on the road and more active transport. So I just want to thank Susie O'Leary, who also spoke tonight, who brought the idea to me, you know, and has shared her struggles as well as other parents from the area.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. Any further speakers?
Through you, Madam Chair, can I just ask how Council advocates for safer crossings and streets in relation to all schools in the LGA? Because I'm conscious that we might be getting one school at a time, ward per ward, but is this a program is there a Safer Streets program around all schools? Are there programs where Council can be involved in advocating active transport and walking safely to school around all schools, or is that a Department of Ed responsibility? Just
Thank you, Councillor Jansen. Mr. Barber, if you could respond, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, there's a few different ways that these things come to our attention. There is a road safety program funded by Transport for New South Wales, and we have received quite a few grants over the last couple of years and done quite a few upgrades around schools in Bayside. They include crossings. You'll see some schools with bigger blisters around on some of the streets where kids cross so that the distance is shorter for them to cross the road. That kind of thing goes on. We also do receive individual requests from schools or from parents or people concerned about road safety, and we can act on those through the Traffic Committee as well. So yes, the answer is yes, there are programs around that we do get grants through to do upgrade works, and others just come to our attention through other means.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just very briefly, thank you to Councillor Douglas for bringing this motion. It's long overdue. Just like to, this has obviously been a long-term project that State Campus pushed for to expand Kiama, the former Kiama Infant School, into the now fantastic Kiama Primary School. But unfortunately, that does come with expanded use, and these sort of issues occur. So definitely something we should be advocating for, and I wholeheartedly support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. Any further speakers? I'll
Just make a comment that this is unique because it was a school with, 80 children or whatever, kindergarten to year 2, and now it's a full primary school. So everywhere around here, most of the schools are established, and we've done all the upgrades, and they've had the pedestrian crossing like Carlton School. So this is a unique situation, and that's why we've got to advocate for something different, to upgrade to a standard around all the local schools in the area.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. No further discussion. I put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. Councillors, because that's the end of the public speakers, I'm going to say we take a 5-minute break, have a stretch. So just one moment and we'll pause the meeting. All right, thank you, councillors. We'll continue with the agenda. I've just been made aware in relation to the last matter we discussed, which was 12.2 notice of motion. Councillor Douglas has declared a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest due to the fact that her children attend that school. So that will be noted in the minutes. All right, councillors, that now takes us to 10.2, the Transport for New South Wales proposal for clearways and road closures. Do you have a mover?
I'll move it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Moved Councillor Saranowski, seconded Councillor Barlow. Councillor Saranowski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I firstly want to thank the staff for a very detailed submission that we're going to be making to the government. If I could just pause and give the councillors a summary of what's happened in our area. It's become a battlefield. We all know what's happened with the M5 and the tolls. That's killed Forest Road, Stony Creek Road, all the businesses along Bexley on Forest Road. People can't sleep at night. Right down to Forest Road, down to Arncliffe. I'm getting calls left, right and centre, Bexley North, on Harrow Road, Bexley Road, all the side streets, Slade Road. So we've been copping it, our residents have been copping it. And unfortunately, it's fallen on deaf ears by the state government. Now, I'm not going to be political, but it's fallen on deaf ears. Now, we look at what's happened to the M6. I planted a tree at the intersection of President Avenue and West Botany Street, along with my fellow Australian Macedonians 10 years ago, and all those trees have all been removed. It's all been removed. And I see what's happening there. And I went down on Saturday. The fruit shop that's there now is virtually on his knees because they've taken away all the parking along President Avenue. There's already one shop across the road that's closed up, a hairdressing salon, because the customers can't park because of the M6. The delicatessen shop is virtually on its knees. A lot of their business was park outside the shop, go in, go out and drive out. So that's what's happened in two of our areas. Now the latest situation, Madam Mayor, the more and more I think about it, I think this is an April Fool's Day because the government has made this announcement for the Cronulla Sutherland Shire elites to go through our city. It's a stunt. It's a stunt for the election. Absolute stunt. You may recall some of the councillors before, a few years ago, Transport New South Wales came to council and said, look, we don't have a proposal, but we're thinking of something. And by the way, we've already introduced it at Tarrant Point. And I just try, and maybe I lost the plot. I actually went for a drive to Tarrant Point to have a look again. Every single property on Tarrant Point Road has on-street parking. On-street parking. I went for a drive on Rocky Point Road. Some of the homes on Rocky Point Road do not have parking on street. It's all off-street parking on it. Councillor Barlow raised the point with the Transport New South Wales, St. Timothy Public School. I'm not sure what's going to happen there. The buses, there's buses there, I've sort of observed. There's buses that go up and down Rocky Point Road and Grand Parade. Immediately the government sold off most of the government bus services, so I'm not sure how they're going to operate a 24-hour clearway with the buses. So I'm not too sure how that's going to work. That's why I think it's just a stunt for the Cronulla elite and the Shire elite people to drive through. They didn't want the M6 passed on to the area. If we look at the proposal, Madam Mayor, if I look at Grand Parade, whilst it may not be a great number, a number in terms of affected properties, but it actually is, because from Grand Parade, from Ramsgate Road to President Avenue, most of the there's no parking, only on the slip lanes. What this government fails to understand, and I must commend Mr. Camper for a wonderful speech he made in Parliament. Wonderful speech. Now, Madam Mayor, I'm not going to call them liars, but when they came and saw us the other day and they said to us they'd spoken to the two operators, well, in actual fact, that night, maybe it was a breach of conduct, I don't know, but I rang the two operators and asked them, I said, have you had any discussions with Transport New South Wales? And the answer was no. One of the gentlemen said he was approached by the Transport New South Wales to give away free coffee at Moochie Emery, but nothing eventuated. The other gentleman was told, oh, look, we're thinking about moving your load in and unload in 100 metres down the street. For God's sake, how can you run a restaurant, and have loading and unloading 100 metres from your business? And while I was there the other day, not inside, I looked at all the rubbish bins. I'm not sure how they're going to move the rubbish bins from the business down 100 metres. I'm not sure where it's going to be parked. Madam Mayor, they told us that the net result is 90 car spots. We're actually going to lose 90 car spots along that street. 90 car spots, just on Grand Parade. Same trip, I had a look at the Georges River site, and I hope Georges River makes a submission. There's a post office there, and some of the takeaway shops, and their business is drive in, drive out, quick thing there. And that's the thing. The pizza shop on Taralba Road, he's got a 15-metre parking spot outside his shop. The reason why he's got the 15-metre parking spot is because his clients go in and go out quickly. Now, they've jaggled this thing about angle parking in Taralba Road and O'Neill Street, but I don't have a problem with that. But the numbers don't stack up. And I was at a film festival 2 weeks ago, and some of the residents in Taralba Road went there, and they said to me, Mr. Saranowski, we're against any closures in Taralba Road. We actually told the council many years ago we don't support any angle parking in that street. So I'm not sure whether Transport New South Wales is going to override it. The biggest issue I have, Madam Mayor, is they're dangling this thing. We're going to do 6 weekends, the last 2 weeks in December, and the 4 weeks in January. But what happens in February, March, April, and May? What happens? There'll be a change of government, and Mr. Camper, if he is elected as a minister, he's made quite categorically stated to me and others that if Labor wins office, they're going to reverse this silly decision. I don't believe the government is fair income about it, because when they came and saw us a few years ago, they wanted to do all the Rocky Point Road up to the pub. Then they realised they can't provide any parking, because there is no parking on Rocky Point. There was a newsagent lady that went to the media and said, most of my clientele is quick, drive, stop, go in, buy the paper and go out. Then the RMS realised, or Transport Service realised, well, hang on, we don't actually have any more, we can't provide parking on it. So all they're dangling to us is saying, if you're good boys and girls, we'll partly close Bay Street for this period of time. And I've got to welcome their decision to enlarge the footpath. That's one way of getting rid of the hoons. It's a big commitment when, over the years, Transport New South Wales have never recognised or accepted there was a need to do something in Bay Street. I remember when I first met Councillor Douglas, she had a letter from Transport New South Wales, I think it was, and said, we don't think Bay Street is a big issue. So I've got to give credit to the government. Yes, they're finally doing something, but at what cost? At what cost? Princess Street, they're talking about shutting Princess Street down and providing, I think, a handful of parking. I had residents from Little Grand Parade, and I think one of the residents came at the hub. They're saying to me, well, we're losing parking, and why should the parking go into the Cook Park, into the reserve? And as I said, Madam Mayor, I'm not being negative or whatever, but this is a con by the government. It's absolute con, out of nowhere, just to please the Cronulla and the Shire elite. That's what it is. That's what Mr. Campbell said in the speech. And we must fight it all the way, because we owe it to all the residents on Rocky Point Road, Sandringham Street, Grand Parade, and the businesses that are on our property. Even in Sandringham Street, I had a look, there's a few cars parked on the weekend. But we need to fight for our residents to make sure that we're not being hit as a 24-hour clearway when we're all promised the F6 is going to solve everything. So if it's going to solve everything, what do I need the clearways for? I remember they said they're going to get 2,000 trucks off our streets by the F6. And the more people I tell about the F6, I go to them, well, it's going to be a big, huge toll waiting for you as soon as you get in on it. And as I said, I congratulate you, Madam Mayor, and also the staff for doing an excellent submission. And I think normally we'd just send it off to Mr. Camper, a copy. And maybe if we could send it to the opposition spokesman for transport. And the other thing I just wanted to say, Madam Mayor, I was horrified as much as what our local member was horrified. He actually got briefed, councillors. He got briefed on the day the submissions were to be closed. Well, on the day, these guys aren't real. Yes, on the day of the submissions to be closed, that's when they briefed Mr. Camper on it. And then on it. So as I said, I stand to support it.
Thank you. Councillor McDougall, I can see your hand up on the screen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I'll just be very brief. I think Councillor Savranovsky pretty much said it all. But unfortunately, when they come in with these very blunt force approaches, really miss out on considering how it will impact on local businesses and local residents. So we really need to take a proactive approach to this. I commend the council and the local member for the work they're doing to try and get a fair go for our local community here.
Thank you, Councillor McDougall. Councillor Barlow, do you accept that we add that a copy of the submission be provided to the Minister and the opposition, Mr. Steve Camper? Thank you. Councillor Douglas?
Could we also add to make this generally available for the public? I just want to commend the director, Peter Barber, who wrote this. It's quite rare that I actually cry when I read council papers, but I was actually crying with relief when I read this. There's just so much sensible information in here about the future planning for Bayside and making this a place for people, a place where we want to come, where we want to linger, where we protect our green spaces, all the things that as a resident I want to see in this area. I don't want to see more fast car roads. I want to linger and love where I live. And so I really do want to thank you, Peter Barber, for your submission, and I would love to see it shared widely with the public, because I think that they would appreciate the knowledge and the level of detail and the references to the different policies that make sense of the kind of future that many people I know in the area want to see for the area.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. So just to confirm that the document is public, we can put a link on the website as well, but they can access it currently through the business papers. Thank you. Councillor Sedrak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to commend, believe it or not, my good friend Councillor Savranovsky and the MP of Rockdale, Steve Camper. There's been a lot of debate on this, and I didn't want to talk about it because of my potential background, liberal values. But that's it. $5. But look, I understand. At conference, I spoke to the gentleman that presented to us at that Teams meeting. And I understand their vision in regards to Transport New South Wales. Believe it or not, there's some good points in having a clearway. However, in the last few weeks, my summary is this, and I think it's crucial that, like how Councillor Savranovsky has summarised it. To me, my quick summary of this: anyone that lives in the back streets, whether it be Bexley, Bardwell Park, Arncliffe, Rockdale, they're quite for the clearway. And they're saying there's a lot of positives out of it. If you want to beat the rat run and get off, so you don't pay that toll, the $6, whatever it is, you're making your way down to get a clear run, and they're thinking a clearway on General Holmes Drive or Grand Parade is a great way to get to the city really quick. So from their perspective, to beat the toll, this is perfect. That was majority of people that spoke to me about it. However, the other side of the coin is anyone that lives on Sandringham or one street behind it, or Grand Parade or General Holmes Drive or Rocky Point Road, whether it be residential, commercial, shopkeepers, they were strongly against it. No one wants to live on King George's Road. Whether you've got an elderly mother, you know, coming to visit you, grandparents, kids, they have the most narrowest driveways. Some driveways are barely legal, and getting in and out of Grand Parade would be a nightmare, especially if it's got a 24-hour clearway or close to that. Another gentleman reached out to me, and he got a property evaluation on his property. He lives on General Holmes Drive in Brighton, Kiama, and his property prices, according to him, again, this is just according to him, would be devalued by potentially $200,000 to $300,000 because, and maybe some of the more experienced councillors could correct us, because of the potential 24-hour clearways. I think, in my overall opinion, is that I'm not totally against this. I want to thank the team, especially Mr. Barber, for putting this together. And I think what we need to really put forward and keep pushing, whether it be in our community, verbally when you see people, or continue the fight. I think there could be positives out of this, but I think the fight needs to come back to Transport New South Wales and say it's not good enough, this outcome. There's got to be a better way for those people. And all I ask for Transport New South Wales, whatever decision you make in state government, whether it be Labor or Liberal, listen to the people, and if there's a good amount of submissions against it, then you must look at amending this application so that we have better outcomes for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cedric. Any other speakers? Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, I rise to congratulate the council officers that have put this submission together. It's extremely comprehensive, and I think it's a very forceful submission, so my congratulations on that. I think on a higher level, I think it's become evident to everyone that lives in this area that we are regarded as second-class citizens. Our areas are not regarded by the state government as destinations. They are regarded as thoroughfares. And we might as well rename the Grand Parade the Carl Expressway on sea level, because essentially that's what it is doing. And to have a state government that is prepared to truncate our community at President Avenue by dumping all that traffic there, it's just absolutely disgraceful. Now, I am personally affected by this because I'm one street back from Stony Creek Road. So I know firsthand what has happened with that exorbitant toll and what it has done by forcing trucks 24 hours a day on a Stony Creek Road and Forest Road to avoid the toll. Now, we really need to start pushing back against this, because I can assure you that this type of thing would not be happening over on the north side. It would not be happening. We are treated with contempt, absolute contempt. And this type of thing is symptomatic of the way we're viewed in this area. And I think it's absolutely disgraceful. Congratulations on the submission. And if we need to get more hairy-chested about this, I think we need to do it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Any further discussion? Councillor Barlow.
Because when we had the presentation the other night, I brought up about Sans Souci School. And interesting enough, I must have done something on the computer, and I had a lady ring me the next day about Sans Souci School specifically. She said they'd been to a school. Now, this woman was very friendly. They tried to get their petition, all the information to the headmaster, but he wasn't available. They left the information there. I didn't realise, but because I didn't go around the back, Sans Souci has a entrance in the boulevard or whatever the street is at the back. But I said, that's all, I'm talking about Bayside residents. I'm not talking about the Georges River residents. It's the Bayside residents that will not be able to park there either side. And she said, oh, we stood there and we watched, and there's a lot of them walked up from Russell Avenue and then crossed at the pedestrian crossing. So they're aware of it, but they don't care. They're not going to do anything. And everyone that I had made a comment with, if I said, if you write a submission, send it to Mark Speakman, because he's the one that proudly decided this is for the Sutherland Shire residents. He didn't care about us. And the thing is that I've got my brother and sister-in-law have moved to Caringbah somewhere. Up at the top of, that's right, and Mark Speakman quoted Tarrant Point Road. That's all industrial. They've all got off-street parking, for all the industry. So I went up further, and if you turn left into Caringbah, they haven't got clearways. They've just got the standard clearways. And this is something, whether it's in the petition, is the clearway. I mean, there's no one will be able to visit anyone on the Grand Parade, Rocky Point Road, Sandringham Street, Saturday or Sunday, because they're not going to have nowhere to park. So that's the 24-hour clearways. I think everyone in that area would accept a morning and afternoon clearway, but definitely not all day. So it's basically, suddenly it's going to go right through to the top of Tarrant Point Road, turn left. They haven't got clearways. Now, why haven't they got a clearway? And it goes through Caringbah Shopping Centre. So it's very unfair. And Mark Speakman was quoting definitely how wonderful Tarrant Point Road was. So I have got residents that I think sent their petition to him. This also affects every side street with anyone that can't find a park. So they're just going to park in all the side streets. And this lady that I spoke to, I made a comment about Terralba Road. I said, we have tried to do 90-degree parking there. The residents don't want it. Are you going to make them have it? Because we couldn't do it, but I assume if they decide, they'll just do it. That's what I assume they'll do. So I said, the residents don't want it. We've tried twice, I think twice to do it, couldn't do it. So the submission's good, but maybe there should have been the same as at Bexley Shopping Centre. They'd be happy with just the clearways, standard clearways, morning and afternoon. At least it gives you that daytime. But weekends, why do they need the clearways? Only for southern residents. So that's an issue, I think, that's something that really needs to be done, because everyone, how are they going to have visitors? I mean, they're not going to have anywhere to park. So anyway, it's a good submission, and I've said to everyone, they didn't listen with Bexley, and good luck. I don't think they're going to listen again. So.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Right of reply, Councillor Saranovsky.
Just the idea I put forward was to make the submission easily accessible on the council website. It's up here. Note that the submission is a public document available in the council business paper on the website. It's quite hard for the public to navigate.
Yeah, we can arrange that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very, 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 very brief. The reason I say this is an April Fool's joke, because they told us the other day that they did a hub for a community meeting at Rockdale Plaza. But actually, the effect of this changes is at Brighton. So why would you go to Rockdale and get, and I know what they'll do is, they'll go to the minister. I'm not sure whether the minister's still be around. It looks like it's a Titanic ship at the River Party at the moment. And they'll go, tick, we spoke to Bayside Council. You know what, we had an information session down at Rockdale Plaza, and 90% of the people were happy. Well, they're happy. Why didn't they do it at Brighton? Well, normal common sense. Do it at Brighton and ask the people in Brighton and ask the shopkeepers. So I think again, this is not against the elite from the Shire. This is an attempt to protect our residents.
Thank you, Councillor Saranovsky. And we just acknowledge the staff that contributed to that comprehensive submission and thank them for their time and energy. And this is what happens when, we're presented with these ludicrous proposals, and then a whole, lot of staff time and energy has to be spent, putting it all in writing when, we know that it's the huge negative impacts it's going to have. I put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. This takes us to 10.3 Bayside, another council submission, this time for the IPART review of the rate peg methodology. You have a mover. Moved Councillor Hannah, seconded Councillor Fardell. Would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, look, I want to congratulate the staff on this submission, but I just want to make a couple of points if I can. I think it's pretty unfair to have what appears to me to be a pretty unreasonable time limit for this submission to be lodged. My own personal view is that I would have really loved to have seen this workshopped, because I think there's ideas around from these elected representatives here tonight that could have been put into this paper, and I'm not criticising the submission. But I just wanted to, if I could, through you, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions just to get it clear in my mind, because this is another financial thing that I'm quite interested in. The rate peg that has been in place for about 30 years, I think Bob Carr might have actually brought it in from memory. If that peg applies to our entire rate pie, is that correct?
Mr Sheridan, I'll hand to you, please.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that is correct. It's all rates are capped by that amount, and plus they may apply a CPI to it every year to increase it.
So just to be clear, so that I understand this fully, and this might just simplify it, if we have 100 rateable residential properties that we charge $1 a year rates on, and that increases to 150 rateable properties that we charge $1 a year rates on, does that mean that we can't collect $150? We can only collect $100 plus the rate peak?
There is an allowance when you increase the property numbers, so there will be a proportional increase. So you'll get the $150 under that scenario. What you won't get is if the land value goes up, you won't get additional rates. You only get additional rates if you get additional rate payers, which come with different additional residents, which means your costs go up. So they do allow for a cost increase if you get additional properties. So yeah, you would go to $150 under that scenario.
Thank you, Mr Sheridan. Thank you. Any further questions? All right, I put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. This takes us to 10.4. So this was a response to a notice of motion, adopt a tree. Councillor, moved by Councillor Hannah, seconded by Councillor Saranowski. Councillor Hannah.
I just wanted to ask the question. This was a notice of motion that was put on the 8th of September 21, which was 13 and a half months ago. I'm just wondering, is there any particular reason why this has taken what appears to be a long period of time to come back into the chamber, particularly as we've missed one complete planting season, it would seem?
I can, yeah.
Through the chair, there are probably a multiple number of reasons as to why this has occurred, and it's not something that we could say it's intentional. I think it probably slipped through the cracks to some degree, but on the other hand, I can also say that we have achieved so much grant funding for planting trees that we have been busily out there planting many more than usual. So the focus has been very operational. It's been getting all of the trees in place that have been able to be purchased because of the grant funding, the extraordinary grant funding that's achieved. And I think it's been a recent initiative that we're really focusing on cleaning up some of those old notices of motion that haven't been dealt with. This one has come to light. It probably wouldn't happen now because we do have our new Environment and Resilience team. We are recruiting an urban forest officer who will be absolutely focused on tree canopy. And I'm sure if they were on board, this would not have happened. But I think we can say a mixture of things, including a little bit of human error as well.
Thank you, General Manager. Can I just add to that councillors will recall, we had a tree planting day one in each of the 5 wards. We also had which was the tree for Mother's Day. We also have had we've got the Queen Jubilee, which we received funding for. So you received calendar invites for a couple more tree planting days. So it's something that, council's very committed to. So there are, it's great that we're getting the grant funding to be able to continue to do those, to plant more trees. Councillor Jansen.
Through you, Chair. A couple of years ago, Bayside received that negative media about one of the LGAs that had the least amount of tree canopy. I'm not sure how that was calculated, but does Bayside keep statistics on how much that tree and hedge coverage has increased, and are we able to promote this?
Just in answer firstly to how is that calculated through the chair, obviously with the airport included and our inability to use the runways for planting, it really impacts on a statistic. So we know that is a skewing of stats. And yes, we do regular mapping of tree canopy. We keep a list of the number of trees and where they're planted, and also those that we have to replace because they haven't survived. So as I say, with our new position that has been created, I think there'll be a lot more science behind that added with their coming on board, and it's something that we'll be able to map and put onto our GIS and report as needed.
Thank you, General Manager. Any further? Okay, I put it. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. This takes us to 10.9, which was the response to question bird nesting boxes, which was a motion. But I note that Councillor Hannah, you wanted to move this item. You wanted to pull it. Councillor Fardell, second. Councillor Hannah, did you want to speak to, or were you just making note that it was a motion and it rather than a question with notice? Or rather than a response to question?
I wouldn't mind having a couple of things to say about it.
Can I ask that you don't ruffle any feathers?
Now that you've done that, Madam Mayor, you've got me feeling down. If I could just make a suggestion, look, the report's terrific, but it sort of does tend to leave things up in the air a bit, and Councillor Fardell did do a fantastic presentation. It was well researched, and when she spoke about the powerful owl, I thought that was a real hoot. But I'd just like to make a suggestion, because it seems to be that it's not quite definitive enough that anything's really going to happen. I think all the ideas are great, but I don't think there's quite enough traction. So what I'm going to suggest is that perhaps we could consider, when we do a park upgrade, or when we do a new playground, or when we do significant works to parks or other areas, that if it's practically possible, that we look at doing a bird nesting box. Just to firm it up a little bit, so that we actually get a bit of traction with this.
Okay.
It's just a suggestion. I'm not criticising the report, but I just want to get something that's just a little bit more tangible. I don't know, perhaps Councillor Fardell might want to make a comment on that, but
I guess if you wanted to move an amendment around...
Yes, I agree with what Councillor Hannah's saying. It would be
I think the research is excellent, but it would be good to have something to move forward with. I know that later in the year we can look at budget and discuss that, so that's wonderful. There needs to be a discussion about the bird boxes, as you've mentioned here. Good ones last about 10 years, but if you go for the more expensive ones, you can be looking at 20 years or more. And so that's something that needs to be considered. So there actually is still a lot of discussion to be had on this subject. And as you know from my original motion, I wasn't suggesting we put it all in next week because it is an expense. So it would be a long-term project. And probably the first areas we put it in, it'll be a little bit experimental and see how that goes, and we sort of move along from there. So we do need a plan, really, to move forward with
So
it.
can I suggest that we amend at another point to say that if a report comes back to the February committee,
Yep.
which provides, you know, outlines a plan or
Yes.
and a time, you know,
No,
a
that'd be
plan to ensure that it's on the and the reason for that is we've really only got another month left, and
Yes,
then there's
true.
Christmas. So and
also we're looking
and
at
we
grants too.
and we would like the
Yeah.
new like the new forest urban canopy
Yes.
staff member on board who will be
Yep.
Can I just make a comment? With the, like, Fix-It Sisters make bird boxes. They made 6 on order from council. Council provided the timber. We've got all the broken branches for the logs so they can hop in. We're making back boxes at the moment. So they can be done in-house. I think Councillor Faldell mentioned the men's shed. So I think that's where it should all start at the beginning, is you've got two sheds, women's shed, men's shed, that can actually do it. We're also making bee boxes. You have a little native bees. I'm going to make myself one, I think. But anyway, so there's those issues that I would look at. The 2 sheds out. The women's shed is actually too busy because they've got too much on. They
Yeah.
did some that was ordered through council. So council do order them through.
Yeah, no, that's a good suggestion, Councillor Barlow. So when it comes to committee, then and you know, perhaps staff can consider that if it's relevant within the report around liaising with our local community groups to to contribute to that project.
I could also suggest liaising with BirdLife Australia. I'm involved with BirdLife Australia and Dr. Holly Parsons, and they're really experts in this field that they can suggest what we should be looking at too.
Great, thank you. All right, I put the motion. All those in
Madam Mayor, if we could just amend the title to response to notice of motion, otherwise the minutes will be incorrect.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. We'll do that. Put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. That takes us to the minutes of the committee. The first one is 11.1, the minutes of the City Services Committee on the 5th of October. So we've there's been a request to withdraw CS 22.024, which is the Scarborough Park Courts update. Councillor Werner.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So I would just like to note that at Scarborough Park, it's come to my attention that there are some ecologically endangered ecological communities there. There's actually 2, and that the area around the tennis courts and also including the tennis courts is protected by state legislation. So I would like to amend that item to say that council note the report and note the ecological importance of the area, and then that area is protected by state legislation.
So what was the motion before?
It was just to note the report before.
So that council notes the report to notes the ecological importance of the area, and that is protected by state legislation.
Can I just ask what state legislation? Like
Well, I'd have to take that on notice.
A point of order, like we're making it, we're saying that it's protected by state legislation, but we don't know what legislation that is. Like it doesn't, we can't put that into a changing minutes off the floor referring to legislation and we don't know what that is.
Okay,
So we
well,
can't support that amendment, I'm sorry.
well, how about we just say that we note the ecological importance of the area?
So who was the original, do we have to go to the original, mover?
I'll just make maybe one point for clarification through the chair. So if you recall, this was an update on the project for the refurbishment of the tennis courts. The review of environmental factors for that project is currently being undertaken. There is an ecologist that has been appointed to do that work. Can I suggest that perhaps council gets a report back when that work has been done by the ecologist? So then you're really hearing from the expert, and I think that's going to be the important milestone for the next important milestone for this project.
So if we can just to bring that to the council notes report and note also that an ecological, what did you say,
Review of environmental factors.
review environment, yeah, by an ecological expert.
Yeah.
And that will tell us what the importance is and if it is covered by legislation.
Thank you. And can we have that presented to the relevant committee, please?
Yep, thank you. So moved, second. Yep, second. Councillor Wider. Councillor McDougall, did you want to speak? You got your hand up?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd actually like to move an amendment about the substance of the motion. So the report from the committee is basically to take this out to consultation. Just have a couple of issues with the Scarborough Park tennis courts and what we're proposing to do there. They're saying go out and look at multi-court use, putting in lights, all this sort of stuff. We've been through this at Scarborough before. It's a local residential street, basically a cul-de-sac running sort of near Ramsgate Public School. And I would like to move an amendment that we exclude point 1 from the report, that it include that when we go out to tender, we include other like multi-sport options from our assessment criteria. And also from the proposed works to exclude lights being included at Scarborough.
So
we've been here before.
Can I just clarify, Councillor McDougall? So you're suggesting that we exclude, it's just tennis? You're saying
for Scarborough.
For Scarborough? And
that we don't propose the construction of lights.
Nighttime lights.
And to Councillor Werner's point, one of the issues with lights there is that there are, I understand, a number of birds that use that as their habitat, the bushland around those courts, and it does disturb their nesting if we install lights there.
Okay. Moved and seconded. So are there any other speakers?
Can I just clarify, either through you, Chair, or Councillor McDougall, what point 1? Like I don't think we've all got this in front of us, to be honest. To be fair, because it's in the committee, and can we just talk about what the impact of this amendment is, what we're seeking to do? I understand don't oppose lights, And look, I'm no expert, but from a commercial viability perspective, there'll be an impact, but that's secondary to other environmental issues, of course. But I just like to understand can someone remind us what point 1 is from and let's just talk through that.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to speak to that. And thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Basically, the report from the committee is about council going out to tender for these courts. Be commencing shortly, basically after tonight's meeting would be my understanding. Obviously recognise that removing lights from it does affect the commercial viability of the facility and will ultimately impact on it. But this is, in my view, not an appropriate location for this sort of intensity of use. And just realistically, if you look at it very simply, the local resident, I'm not sure if you've been there, Councillor Morrissey or councillors, but it is a fairly quiet back street. They were some really great tennis courts. They've really fallen into disrepair, sadly, but basically a great resource for the local public school that's right nearby, local tennis players. It's long overdue to fix these up, but intensifying use, I think, will be met with significant community opposition. I feel like the project will fall over again. I mean, this has been in limbo now for years as the tennis courts have slowly fallen apart. We need to get them back up to scratch, if nothing else for the local school, who again get great use out of them. And to do that, I think we need to proceed with a project that is viable and palatable to the community.
So I might just, the General Manager would just like to add something in relation to this.
Thank you through the chair. Councillors, I feel I need to remind you that the funding for this project, $1 million of the funding is from the state government's multi-sport grant. So we would need to go back to them to see whether it would be still an eligible project if it is solely for tennis. I think that's one thing. We did talk about having one of the courts more open, changing the boundary fencing. I think this came up at the committee meeting, and allowing it to be used for basketball. I think that was your preference on the night of the committee. I couldn't guarantee that the state government would agree to us retaining the $1 million if it's not multi-sport. So that is one thing. The other thing I would suggest that perhaps in going to tender, you could go to tender for a separable portion for the lights. To make a decision tonight without really considering the commercial and the level of response you're going to get to a tender that is only for daytime tennis in that location. I don't think any of us have really contemplated that in any great detail. I would just say that I think the current state of the courts as they exist now is in some way indicative of the interest that there is in only playing daytime tennis. So I think there's a few things that didn't come up at the committee that Councillor McDougall has now brought to your attention that may need further investigation, or if you wish to move this way, then we'll go back to the New South Wales Government and see whether or not we're able to keep the funding under those conditions.
Look, I'd be happy to, depending on the way the room goes, if we aren't happy to go out for daytime usage, then I'd prefer to see it referred back to a committee for further consideration. But regarding the multi-sport issue, if we are not able to retain the grant funding, obviously that's another issue. But, I would say attempt that. And pending that, obviously, we don't want to lose the grant funding. So I'm sure that could be incorporated on the night if there's not opposition to the exclusion of the lights.
Yeah, I think we might just, if councillors are happy, we might just defer this item, just because I think we really need to consider a number of things, particularly around the grant, the commercial viability, and because Councillor Morrissey.
Yeah, I was actually going to suggest that, but before I did was just to see clarity if there's any timing on the grant funding, or if we can defer this back to the next committee meeting for further discussion.
So I might just ask Miss Farrell, you're online. Can you provide any information in relation to the timeline and our commitments?
Certainly, through you, Madam Chair. The grant requires that we commence on site before the end of December. The proposal was to demolish the existing sheds on site, and that would constitute commencement. But we would run a tender in early 2023 for the construction of the new facilities.
Thank you, Miss Farrell.
So with that said, I'll be, maybe Councillor McDougall, if you're happy just to defer that to the next month's committee, we can still proceed with commencement, effective commencement. So the grant funding is not jeopardised, but we can seek further clarity and have more Q&A at the next City Services Committee meeting would be my suggestion.
I'd agree with that, but I'd suggest that we also reach out regarding the multi-sport issue, because that doesn't need to be, we can resolve that prior to further discussion.
We might just have to, the next committee meeting's next week, so it may take a bit of time. So if we say,
Let's get it in train.
Yeah, so if it's either the next committee or council meeting, yeah.
Can I just make a comment? I bring this computer so I can look up the committee papers, because they're not on here, right? I can't find it anywhere in here. It says the 5th of October. That report says receipt and note. That's all it says. I don't know where part 1 is. So there must be another report somewhere else. It's not attached in anything I can find. But maybe I should go to the seniors tech class that I saw today. But it's very frustrating. You've got all the committees. So now I bring this so I can read the committee paper if I can't read it. That's not on here. But I have no idea where Councillor McDougall's reading from, because all it says in the committee papers is receive a note. So it's very confusing. I believe, I don't know, this has to be a timing thing. We don't want to lose this money. And if we haven't got, I don't know, it can come to a workshop. There's got to be, some things are so important you can't just ignore them and send them to a committee if it's 6 weeks away or whatever.
So I think we are going to commence the work. So it's not delaying that all. Then we'll just get more information on those factors. So, all right. So we have in front of us a motion that this item be deferred to the next committee or relevant committee or council meeting. So moved by Councillor Werner, seconded by Councillor McDougall.
Add, Madam Mayor, that that we contact the state government regarding the multi-sport grant?
Yes.
You.
So, do you accept that? Yeah. Okay. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. All right. That takes us to item CS 22.025. So I note that Councillor Muscat has left the room. So moved. Councillor Morrissey, seconded Councillor Jansen. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. That takes us to 11.3. This is the minutes of the City Planning and Environment Committee. Councillor Saranowski. Okay, Councillor Saranowski has left the room. So I don't think there's any speakers, so we'll just, it's Councillor Saranowski's room. Moved, Councillor Jansen, seconded Councillor Douglas. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. Please invite Councillor Saranowski back, although the next one is purely because Councillor Muscat is has left the room for yeah. Yes. But she's out for this one. Okay. So, we need to have a division on this because it's a planning matter. So I will just, Councillor Saranowski, we need a division. Can you tell him we've got a division, please? Thank you. He doesn't? Okay, I've got a quorum. All right. So this is in relation to point 033, the post exhibition of the of 94A contributions and amendment to the Costa Botany Aquatic Centre. So all those in favour, moved Councillor Jansen, seconded Councillor Morrissey. We'll just go through, if you'd like to put the division table up, please. Okay, Councillor Morrissey, Councillor Muscat, Councillor Fidel, Councillor Jansen, Councillor Naji, Councillor Saranowski, Councillor Souness, Councillor Werner, Councillor Rawada, Councillor Barlow, Councillor Hannah, Councillor Douglas, Councillor McDougall. I think he's dropped off. Councillor Cedric, 4. Myself, 4. Therefore, I declare that carried. All right, councillors, that takes us to the minutes 11.5. Councillor McDougall has said his internet has just dropped out, so he's going to try to come back into the room. So the minutes of the Traffic Committee from the 12th of October, we've had a request to pull out item BTC 22.111, 19 Gladstone Street, Bexley, renewal of the 8.7 work zone for 14 weeks. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to add point 4, that the applicant be advised that council will undertake regular checks to ensure compliance with conditions of approval.
Do I have a seconder? Okay, so we're a mover and a seconder. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against, declare it carried. Second item to be withdrawn is BTC 22.120, temporary delegation to council officers to approve work zones until 31 March 2023. Councillor Hannah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, similar addition. That the General Manager or her delegate impose site-specific conditions of approval and advise applicants that council will undertake regular compliance checks to ensure conditions of approval are adhered to.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Second, Councillor Wada. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. That takes us, councillors, to number 12, which is the notices of motion. So the first notice of a motion is 12.1, beach signage. Moved. Councillor Douglas. Have a seconder? No, it's not asking for a report. It's got an expenditure. So
there was a slight change of wording from the original motion, which is, you can see in the second paragraph there, to address any concerns about it costing us money as a council. So we can actually delete the first para
Yeah. So moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Well, I was going to propel into this motion and not have a spray or make any waves. But really, this is just about creating a sense of place, a safe place for our community over summer, and a place for all of us. I mean, Botany Bay is a water wonderland, isn't it? And I'm not against jet skis. I think we've got this amazing water space for them, but let's not have them so close to the shore. This is a cautionary measure to prevent some of the really difficult conflicts that the community has experienced over the last few years, where we've had jet ski drivers coming too close to shore, hurting dolphins, doing donuts, all sorts of weird and wonderful, dangerous activities. So a little bit of public education would go a long way to make everybody feel safer, know the rules about what jet skis can and cannot do, and how to report those breaches. That's it. Thank you.
So I just want to, yeah, so this is an amendment to the one that's been published.
Yeah.
So it's been amended. So the previous one, just so councillors are sure, the previous one asked that council works with the New South Wales Maritime to install. So that meant there was a financial implication for council, but this one is that council
Request.
or rights.
I
to-
actually, and I also took out before 2022, 2023 summer, just because I thought that maybe was too short a time frame, a bit ambitious.
So you want to remove that?
Yeah, I thought I had when I.
Remove 2022-23 summer, so it reads that council requests that New South Wales install signs along Lady Robinson's Beach to explain the laws jet ski riders must abide by and how to report illegal jet ski activity. Okay, all those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. That takes us to 12.3, notice of motion, employment of trainees, apprenticeships and students, graduates at Bayside Council. Moved Councillor Morrissey, seconded Councillor Wada. Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. This notice of motion is a really important one, I think, for employment in local government, not only across New South Wales but in Australia, and I'd really implore more councils to get on board with this, which is really a positive thing, flying in the face of what a number of councils are doing, which is contracting out work and not looking after the council workers, employees and staff, which is absolutely something that needs to be stopped. So 12 months ago, I put up a successfully passed motion, which was what we call it 6 in 6, which was 6 apprenticeships in 6 months. Thanking, with thanks to the staff, the council officers, that was a very successful program, and all of those apprenticeships, traineeships are well underway. As you can see from the report there's now 18 current positions filled by apprentices and trainees across our council, and Bayside Council, with the programs that they're running internally, which is to even peer support programs, which is mentioned there in the peer support, internal peer support programs, where you were building or joining new graduates with very experienced people, bringing fresh blood into the council, into local government is a very, very positive thing. And you can see also there's 3 additional graduate positions coming up now in finance. So, building on our successful audits, we're going to have more people employed in that space. Now, my view is also that if you offer this type of program to people who may not finish HSC, they're year 10, there's plenty of programs available for apprentices and trainees, but also graduate programs in the finance and town planning where people can put their degrees to good use. And local government is a very strong employer. Not always a job for life, but almost certainly if you do, you can have a job for life, not only in one council, but multiple councils, and giving back to the community. So, retention's the key. Sustainability, this supports sustainability of not only this council, but any council who adopts a similar sort of program. And it was interesting, there was a very, very interesting and inspiring delivery from a demographic expert at, can't think of his name, the German guy. He's on all social media. Sorry, I should have been prepared. Good Kuntenheim and Simon something. Anyway, but he's
Yeah.
actually telling councils now how to not only attract these types of employees, but to retain them. What pushes their button, so to speak, so that council can be an employer of choice, not only from baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. What is it called, the current ones? Alpha. Generation Alpha is the new term I learned. But if we're working, there's even data on how to attract and retain these employees. And all local government is certainly aware of the skills shortage in our industry at the moment. So thank you. I hope that this will be supported.
Any other speakers? Councillor Saranovsky.
Madam Mayor, I just want to rise to thank Councillor Morrissey. He's the one that was driving this last year. And this will be a catalyst for all other areas in local government, because through my employment life at the bank, the word apprenticeship was wiped. Didn't exist. And I commend you, Councillor Morrissey, for the driving force last year and this year, because it's important in terms of the youth of today. My son's studying at Wollongong University Business Management, and he's not 100% sure if he can get a job. And I've actually said to him, look for an apprenticeship, wherever it is, whether it's a trade or business, whatever. So, Councillor Morrissey, I commend you for your drive and commitment in this, and particularly last year. So I say, well done, mate.
Any other speakers? Councillor
Yeah, I
Hannah.
rise to support this. I think this is a terrific initiative and it's something that we should be building on. And I spent 35 years of my working life in an organisation. When I first started, that was a huge employer of apprentices and trainees. And these big state organisations used to be fantastic. You know, I mean, we used to train up fantastic electricians and plumbers and all sorts of things. Well, as a country, we've lost all of that. And I think it's to our detriment, because if we have to rely on skilled migration all the time to fill the gap, that's not the way to do it. These people should be homegrown. So I commend this initiative, and I really hope that this type of thing really starts to take off, not only amongst local government, but back in those state-owned organisations that have been trimmed down to virtually nothing, and all they do now is contract manage. I worked for 35 years at Sydney Water. When I first started, there were 17,000 employees. When I finished, there were 1,500. And virtually no apprentices were taken on, virtually everything contracted out, virtually everything just contract management. So I think we need to start as a country trying to get a bit back to basics, and as a local government we can be part of this. So congratulations on this, it's terrific.
Thank you, Councillor Hannah. Councillor Morrissey, would you like to add a number 3 that we put out a media release around the previous program and that councillor extending it? A media release, number 3. Councillor Muscat?
Sorry, I was just going to say that.
You don't, yeah,
Is that
you
okay if I
stay
stay?
there. Yes, you don't need to stand with.
Sorry, I just wanted to acknowledge that on Facebook, Council has already put up about coming to work at Council with apprenticeships and things like that. So it's already out there on Facebook, so congratulations.
Thank you. All right, all those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. This takes us to 12.4, notice of motion refurbishment of public amenities block located on Botany Road, Botany. Moved Councillor Muscat, seconded Councillor Morrissey. Would you like to speak, Councillor Muscat?
Yes, thank you. First of all, I want to give some positive feedback to Council. In the last couple of weeks, I've been having to get around on community transport and taxis for rehab purposes. And in both areas, I've had feedback from the drivers of different vehicles praising the amenity block
down at Borley Park. They said that seeing they're out on the roads, they need toilets and amenities that they can go to that are safe, that are clean, and that are open. And as I said, from taxis and from community drivers, that was praised. So I wanted to let council know about that. And then there's the toilet block that's down there on Botany Road, near the IGA, opposite the town hall, is an area that desperately needs to be brought up to speed with modernisation is one thing, and safety. It's not a toilet that I would use because I don't feel safe going in there myself. But it needs to be brought up to standard. It needs to be cleaner. It needs to be family friendly. It needs to be disabled friendly as well for those people that, you know, have a disability, because on that strip down there in Botany, we don't have any other public toilets other than the pub, or you go into the doctor's medical centre for families to use. So if you're a mother and you've got a couple of children coming and you're walking back from school or the shops, and there's always someone that has to go, you know, and there's nowhere and they don't feel safe. So I would like to see that public toilet block brought into the modernised world, make it safe and friendly, and then on the exterior, put some murals like it was mentioned before with some of the other public amenities in our area. Across the road, the chemist has a wall that they went and got like a graffiti designed. It was, and it's never been touched by any graffiti artist or anyone in the entire time it's been there on Kavanagh's. So they got people to do that from the area, to do that wall. So let's make our community proud to go to. Let's make it that people who come into the area feel safe to use the toilet block. So that's what I would like to see.
Thank you, Councillor Muscat. Any other speakers? Councillor Jansen?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I would suggest that we could do both of the Botany and Mascot murals as part of this mural program that we talked about. So it's ticking the boxes of that adopted public art policy as well, and that they could potentially both, those EOIs could go out at the same time with different site-specific elements as part of that brief. So they would need to briefs would need to be developed that, you know, addressed the different kind of considerations for each area. But I think it would be great to promote it as a mural program EOI, and you could do it jointly for both blocks.
Thank you, Councillor Jansen. Councillor Douglas?
Is it possible that we could add the toilet block at Kaima Beach to this motion? I don't know if anybody's ever been in there, but it's absolutely something that I wouldn't want to use. And it just needs a bit of extra work, some tiles or something to clean it up.
Can I suggest that you consider doing a motion in the future, because this motion actually has funding, which is accessible through VPA funds.
Okay.
Whereas any other toilet blocks, there would have to be funding available. So you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, this reads suitable funding sources. It doesn't say it's funding.
Well, yeah, they've got to identify suitable funding sources. So suitable funding sources are available potentially through the reserve funds from the VPA to be spent in that
I was
area.
just saying, could do an SRV for that side of the
Thank you,
LGA,
Councillor Barlow.
or you could
All right.
in the state election, I'm hoping that you will be able to ask all our members to suddenly produce money for us.
That would be lovely. Thank you, Councillor Barlow. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. 12.5, notice of motion Laser Oceania and Australian Open and Youth Championships. Moved Councillor Saranowski, seconded Councillor Cedric. All those in favour say aye. Oh, sorry, anyone want to speak to it? Sorry.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just wondered if these sorts of events that council supports, do they carry the council logo on them to indicate that council is supporting them through waving booking fees.
I'll refer to General Manager, please.
Through the chair, yes, wherever council provides either financial or in-kind support to any events, that is one of the provisions. We ask that council be acknowledged as a sponsor and that our logo be included where possible.
Thank you. No further speakers? All right, I put it, all those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. 12.6, notice of motion, Old Botany Police Station. Moved Councillor Morrissey, seconded Councillor Muscat. Would you like to speak to it?
Look, thank you, Madam. Only just to point out to councillors that it was about 12, I can't remember the day, it was about 12 months ago that we looked at asking the state government to place an interim heritage order on this building, given that this, to us, in our community, it's very significant, built in the 1800s. It was a country jail in the day. The powers that be suggested that it's quite a common sort of building and we're not going to do that. But thankfully, I'm informed that council officers have met with the owners, which is the Land and Housing Corporation, who agreed that the deterioration of the building is unacceptable and have agreed to start looking at improving it. So it's now we know it's safe and secure. This motion is starting to advocate to say, well, once you've done that, we're interested in taking that building off your hands. So it'll be a very long process. The idea is for what we're seeking to do is it's very clear. After refurbishment are key two words in this motion. So we want them to refurbish it, but then what are they going to do with it, right? So it is a local heritage item in the Botany Town Centre, and we do have unsolicited requests from time to time expressing interest to lease it out for various purposes, cafe, restaurant, culture, all sorts of things, but we don't own it, and we have to deflect that. So seeking your support with the ultimate outcome being sought that we take over that building at some point. Thank you.
Any further speakers? Yep. It's dailies.
Yeah, we just add that we local members for Maroubra and Heffron. Thank you. Yeah, agree.
Thank you. All right, any other speakers? All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. Our final motion, councillors. This is the provision of defibrillators and training of It's all right, it includes training of people at senior citizens. So this is just to ensure that we do an audit and make sure that DFIBs are available at all these. So move Councillor Morrissey, seconded Councillor Jansen. Anyone want to speak to it?
Just to point out, this was brought about by an incident in one of our senior citizens centre. Everyone's okay, but it was a near miss, and it became evident that in a lot of our council-owned buildings, particularly where we are opening that to members of the public, that not every one of them has a DFIB. Now, DFIBs now are very, very inexpensive. They're not thousands and thousands as they were in the past. Just in my experience, people, you see them, they're in shopping centres and sporting fields. They're all over the place now, which is absolutely fantastic. And as now with them becoming much more affordable, we're encouraging council to look into making sure that we've got facilities, for example, our senior citizen centres, that there is a DFIB available at those centres. But in addition to that, let's go on there, is the training, because it is a little bit of a misnomer that this DFIB is a very difficult thing to use. You see the things, in the hospital emergency programs on TV and people being shocked and things. The reality is, if you open the case, it actually tells you step by step and word for word what to do. So what we'd like to do as part of this rollout is to train, particularly starting with our seniors. It could be our childcare workers, because that does happen to children as well. But, you know, council-owned assets with council employees to make these available. The training is $55 per person. It's absolutely a drop in the ocean, and that's CPR training. So CPR training is actually the things you see with the pumping the chest, etc. But all the doctors ABC. The D is the DFib at the end of that. $55 a person for council to fund that for our community members to be able to help themselves in the times of emergency. And based on the outcome of this, then we've just to sort of foreshadow that, we'll be looking, you know, I'd like to roll that out across all wards a couple of times a year for the broader community. So again, they're in a position that if they see something, they can start CPR, and if they see a DFib on the wall, they've actually got the confidence to use it, because it's out there at the moment. A lot of people say, "Oh, I wouldn't know," but it's excuse me, very, very easy. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further speakers? I put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against, declare it carried. That takes us to number 13, which is questions with notice. I know that people, councillors, to send their questions of notice. So you'll see on the board there are some questions of notice there, which will be in the minutes. All right. That then takes us to the conclusion of the meeting. So thank you, councillors, because it is now cleaning time, and that is at 10:23 p.m. I declare the meeting closed.